Welcome to another edition of the Talking Cloak. That's a good start. I haven't been on for 2 weeks. Welcome to another edition of the Clock End Talks podcast with me, Darren, and I'm joined this week by Tony. Hello, mate.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, so I've got lots of moaning to do about you miserable bastards that have done it for the last 2 weeks.
Do you still want Emery till Christmas?
No, I did make that decision about 3 weeks ago. It didn't make much difference changing him for the first couple of games, but we won. Finally, we've won. Apologies to those of you who expected a podcast after the Brighton game. It wasn't that we were all just so depressed we didn't want to do one, although that is true. But we couldn't get together. It's this Thursday night, Monday night game playing makes it a little bit difficult for us sometimes to get all our ducks in a row. Schwinn, as usual, wasn't about at the weekend. Tez was unfortunately not available, and me and Tony, I don't think, really fancied it.
Yeah, I was available. I just didn't want to be honest.
I noticed that Tez has actually asked for more people to come on the pod now. I think that's because we fucked it off this weekend.
I think he's got, I don't know how much he wants me to say, but I think he's got a few more hospital appointments coming up than he expected. So it's just obviously if he's not available and then 1 week you're not available or I'm not available, it just means it can't be done because obviously you can't do a one-man podcast. So it'll just be people filling in it might be 3 of us, or it just gives us an option if me or you aren't available, there's still someone else to bounce off. Yeah,
can't do a one-man podcast. Listen to the Arsenal India podcast. I did 140 episodes and at least 30 of them were just me ranting for an hour. A great podcast it was. No, you're right. It's very, very difficult to do one on your own. And if people can hear a wind rushing through my studio today, it's because I've just opened a window in this little office I've got for the first time in 10 years and I can't get it to shut again, and it's blowing a gale outside. So it's not like Tez where he's sitting out in the garden with people mowing the lawn and there's birds and nature going on in the background. This is Stansted and there's aeroplanes and trains and shit. Anyway, so I wasn't on last 2 weeks. We've got a new manager. Can I just go back a bit? I mean, I know I was fairly supportive of Emery. I think that changed for me about, 3 or 4 weeks ago when the results just weren't there. And as Arsenal Football Club, we've got to be challenging for titles, not looking over our shoulder at relegation. So that change was made. But listening to you lot all, was it last weekend? You, Schwinn made a rare appearance on a podcast. Tez was back. You all just completely ripped the back out of Lundberg after 2 days in charge and 1 game. What you got to say?
I don't want him as manager. We won yesterday. I still don't think he's the. I'll be disappointed if it comes up on Sky Sports News in front of me now. Lundberg handed a 6-month contract. I don't want it. Obviously, I'll get behind him and I'm still going to go to games and whatnot. But it's not. I don't think it's anyone's first choice.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of choice out there, and surely for the last 6 months while we've been talking about changing our manager, an ideal situation was going to be that we were going to do pretty well under Emery and Lundberg would sit in the background and learn and be developed as being a future Arsenal manager. And, when Emery wasn't working out, the same sort of thing. Let's bring in someone and then we've got to keep Freddie on board because he's got the potential to be a future manager. But he's been given a job and he's only, been doing it for one week. He's a club legend. He's probably one of in the top 10 players to play this football club this century. He was part of the Invincibles. He speaks perfect English. It's such a joy to listen to him at press conferences. We know he's not perfect, but the criticism that he was getting from everyone, you three, but on Twitter, on our WhatsApp group, I just thought it was so out of line with a man who's only been doing the job for 2 days and somebody that we should really be getting behind.
I think from my point of view, you've just kind of hit the nail on the head that they were lining him up and they think he's going to be a perfect manager in 2 years. If they give him 6 months now, it could, and hopefully doesn't, it could end his managerial career. If you have a few games 6 months now and it doesn't work out, or you just do so, then in 2 years when they want to prime him back in, everyone's going to go, remember when he was like shit a couple of years ago?
Problem is, Tony, I do agree with that. I agree with that statement. And it's not an ideal situation. We're managerless in December with 5 months to go of the season, 6 months to go of the season. We're managerless. We're in free fall in the Premier League. We're struggling in the Europa League. We've got players who are showing dissent towards the club. We've got fans that are unhappy. We've got a miserable stadium. It's not a perfect place, but is the perfect answer to recruit somebody now who's unproven, who's there's no ideal candidate out there? Or do we just write this season off and run with Freddie and let's see how things go until the ideal candidate does come up?
I said, for me, he is not the option. No, to be honest, I wouldn't even mind just a disciplinarian, and because that's what the players need. Look, they're good players. I said to someone a couple of weeks ago, I don't actually think it's the hardest job. You just have to get the players believing in whoever it is. And Lundberg could do that. But you feel like you've got a much better chance of someone who's got a proven record of doing it. Because I think the players are good enough. It's not like we're a better squad than we were last year, undoubtedly. And we're a lot worse as a side. And I think it's just the players. Look, the major problem is the players. They're just not buying into anyone. They're pretty much doing their own thing. They all are so massively short of confidence. I just think you need someone in there to rally them together and get them believing in what they're doing and reminding them they're actually good footballers.
But what my point is that the criticism I heard from you and from Tez and from Schwinn and from everybody else about his selections for his first and second games. And remember, the podcast was after the Norwich game where we drew. We didn't do one after the Brighton game, which was abysmal. And I'm not coming from someone who thinks that Freddie Ljungberg is going to be the be-all and end-all and be our manager for the next decade. I'm not. But I just found that the criticism of his team selection if I was to be asked who I wanted as a manager, Freddie Ljungberg or Schwinn, I'm going to go for Freddie. If I'm going to ask if it's you or if it's Freddie Ljungberg, I'm going to go for Freddie Ljungberg.
Yeah,
if it's Tez,
I think I'd rather have me. No, to be honest,
if it was Tez or Freddie Ljungberg, I'd go for Freddie. If it was me or Freddie Ljungberg, well, I'd maybe negotiate a player manager role because I could still see myself scoring. But I'd go for Freddie, and I just thought the criticism that he got for his team selection was out of line with the amount of time he's had to put his feet under the table.
I disagree with that because he knows enough about football. He's been with the club long enough. He's been there as a coach for at least 18 months now. Ozil's not a left winger. And look, I said this last week and I've been saying it to anyone that listens to me since. I like Ozil. I wasn't one of them that was trying to get rid of him the whole time. But you play him as a number 10 or not at all. I know there's some people who say, shoehorn him in the team anyhow. No, play him at 10. And if you're playing a system that doesn't have a 10, don't play him. To start off his first two games starting Ozil left wing, I just thought, you're better than this. I don't know if you're better than this because you've never been a manager, but you must be. You can't watch this guy who can't run and go, he's a winger.
Yeah, maybe so. It was very interesting. I take it you were at the game last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to watch it on Sky, and Rafa Benitez was the pundit with Carragher. I didn't listen to a lot of them, but I listened to them after the game because I was so joyous about us actually winning something that you want to take it all in, don't you? You want to see the goals again, you want to enjoy it. And although Benitez made it quite clear that he's not coming back from China, and he certainly wasn't in my choice of managers to come, but he did talk about how one game can really change things, and he talked about, it was a great story. He said he was 2-0 down at half time. I can't remember who he said he was against when he was manager at Valencia, and it was one of those games that the press was saying that if he'd lost, he was going to get sacked. And they went on to win 3-2 in the second half, and he went on to win the league that year. I can't see us catching Liverpool, but it didn't feel like that yesterday? Aren't we as supporters? Wasn't it just so much relief? We beat the other worst team in the form league table, and yet it feels like it was a giant victory, does it not? Yeah,
it was huge. But beyond anything else, not just a win. For half an hour, we actually looked like a football team, whereas for the last 2 months, maybe we haven't. We've just kind of looked like something might happen, and if things happen, it's like we score goals almost by accident rather than design. Whereas yesterday, and I think that first goal, like you're saying, one game can change everything. I think that first goal changed everything. We moved the ball a little bit quicker and scored, and it was suddenly like, oh, okay, if we move the ball quick, something might happen. And then for the rest of the game, that's exactly what we did. Yeah. It's just, as you said, I don't know if that brought confidence back or, oh, look, this works, let's keep doing it. Whatever it was honestly like two different teams. I went with quite a few mates, but we sat separately, not too far apart. And I went to speak to them at half time, and everyone was just like, even people I didn't know were just like down in the dumps. People asking about a relegation battle. When are you giving up your season ticket? Blah, 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 blah. And then you come at the end of the game, and it was like, we're going to win the league. Obviously, we're not going to win the league. But, I mean, we were singing We Are Staying Up.
Yeah, well, that's good. One of the other things Benitez said last night was, which made me think of what you were saying about balance. And that's the thing that he kept talking about. He said it's not necessarily about your best players playing, it's about getting a balance in our side. And that's just been missing for us all season, isn't it? Trying to cram two best strikers, which means we have to stick one out left or right. Ozil not being in the side, and now when he is in the side, forcing him into play in places that he's not really at his best. The balance just hasn't felt right, has it? There's always been this big gap between our attack and defence, and it's been pretty poor. I don't think we really want to touch too much on Brighton, do we?
No. I'm trying to forget that the game happened, to be honest.
Well, it was a strange game in that we would just you expect a new manager bounce, and I know we got a little bit of it at Norwich in the first 20 minutes. We played quite well, but you're at home. The crowd wasn't too negative, there was Freddie is a legend there, and I felt that because there wasn't that many in the crowd, there was still another 10 or 15,000 didn't turn up, but they were quite supportive. There was quite a lot of singing going on. It was quite a decent atmosphere before the game, and then the players come out and killed it. They were terrible, weren't they?
That first half was absolutely stinking. Barring yesterday, it was the worst half of football I've seen us play. Like, we've had times where we've played stinking football and we've got a goal. Like, we was bad at Norwich in the first half, but I said the first 20 minutes we were good and then we fell apart. That first half at Brighton, I don't think there was a single second of that half where we was good. And yeah, it just sucked the life out of everything. Like, I know there's always this argument about should the fans lift the team or the team lift the fans, but there was just nothing to get behind. Like, they didn't do anything where you could even clap or go well done. It was just like, what are you doing? It was painful.
It really was. Let's go to. We want to talk about the West Ham game. So highly critical of his of Freddie's formations for the first two games. What did you make of his choice yesterday? I mean, he obviously Leno started. He had Bellerin and Tierney to start. I know Bellerin got injured in the warm-up. Chambers and Socrates, so no place for David Luiz. Torreira and Xhaka in midfield, so there's no place for Guendouzi. And then you've got three, Pepe and Martinelli playing wide with Ozil in his preferred position, number 10, Aubameyang up front. Did you feel like he'd got that right?
Yeah, perfect. Literally, I was in the pub in Westfield next to the ground when the lineup came out, and everyone was just like, oh, like, we've kind of got a bit of confidence now. We was all down in the dumps before. Oh, it's Arsenal going to lose again. We're shit, blah, blah, blah. Lineup's come out, and it's like, oof, actually, that's exactly what I would have picked. And I actually said to my mates, like, if we lose, I can't blame the selection this week. And I always used to either put it in the WhatsApp group or used to say to Tez and Schwinn, like, when the lineup come out, I always used to say my thoughts on it there and then, so then I couldn't be a hypocrite after. But obviously I was in the pub with my mates, so I just said to them, like, that is bang on. And look, he's made some brave decisions. Everyone knows my thoughts on Guendouzi, that I think he's an excellent player. He just doesn't suit any system or any partner. And it's a brave call to leave him out because he has been our best centre midfielder. And the other one's Lacazette. I mean, I know it was a fan's vote, but he was voted our player of the year last year. He has a lot of fans that can't see him do any wrong. But the balance just wasn't right with him there, especially with Aubameyang on the right. So it's a big call to leave him out. But I like that. Like, he's showing some bollocks, because there's a lot of managers, especially if they're just like, they're trying to not upset the apple cart, not rock the apple cart. They'll just go with the tried and tested established players. No one's going to moan. Like, if Martinelli's left out, he's probably not going to moan. Whereas you can imagine Lacazette, this is nothing against Lacazette, but he'll be thinking, I should be in this team, and he'll be going on knocking on the manager's door. Why am I not starting? And he's made the harder decision to make, but for me, it was the right one.
Yeah, I got to agree. It did look fairly well balanced. Back to that balance, that we talked about just now. It felt with Ozil in the middle, those Torreira and Xhaka. I mean, I'm not so sure how well that worked. I mean, we'll get onto that, but it did feel sort of right. I still would rather have Guendouzi in that side. I just think he gives us that little bit of energy that's missing sometimes with a Xhaka Torreira pivot. However, I think it's also really good to actually drop him, rest him for as long as it takes, for a couple of reasons. One, to get him realise that he's not first choice, although I don't think he's rested on his laurels at all. He still gives everything week in, week out. But I think sometimes just to sit back and observe football for a few games, to not be in the firing line when you're that young and there's that much criticism flying about, it's not such a bad thing to be pulled out. And I mean, he was pulled out of a couple of games that we lost, we drew and we lost. So I really do want, I think Guendouzi really is the future, but I think it was a smart decision yesterday to let him play. And then how did we play? That first, let's take that first half. Was it enjoyable at the game?
No. Honestly, it was worse than Brighton. I think we had two shots. One, Aubameyang hit the upper tier, and the other one, the Ozil header, was offside anyway, but went well over. I don't think, apart from them instances, we touched the ball in their area. It was just painful. I mean, I've not seen any stats or anything, but I'd love to know the amount of times in the first half Socrates and Chambers just passed the ball between each other. I mean, it must be more than one a minute for the whole half. It must be more than 45. It was ridiculous. And it's not like they were probing. They were just giving it to each other for there's nothing else on, we'll give it to him. And then, there's still nothing on, I'll give it back. I'm not just blaming them two. If one of the midfield options, either Torreira or Xhaka, came short, they would get the ball, but then no one else would show for them. So they had no options. So they'd just end up giving it back. Like, seeing the whole pitch, and look, you might have seen the same on TV, I don't know, but like being able to see the whole pitch, it was shocking. Like, they were just stitching each other up massively. Like, even sometimes, like Maitland-Niles would go down the line to Pepe, and he'd have no one within 30 yards of him. So then he'd give it back, and people are like, "Oh, we're going backwards again." But otherwise, the two options are give it back or lose the ball. It was painful. No one was showing for anyone. Everyone was doing the safest pass possible for themselves, not caring what options anyone else had. So if they had a 5-yard ball on, it's like, I'll do that, and then it's someone else's problem. And then the stat person, I'll give the easiest ball I've got, and then it's someone else's problem. And it was just it was just mind-numbing. It wasn't trying to do anything. It was just like being super safe, but for no reason.
Can I look? I agree. The manager agrees. It was too slow. Everything was just, very sedentary in pace. It was a slow build-up. I watched the game sober last night. I shouldn't just admit to that, but I've watched it at home on my own, and I was making notes, almost like a proper journalist, rather than just somebody who comes on and shouts his mouth off once a week. And I looked back this morning at some of the stuff I wrote, and it's interesting that much as it was exactly as you've described it, no doubt about it. Not many people run its space. We actually, for the first time in weeks and weeks and weeks, kept the ball. Now, I know it was in the wrong areas of the pitch, and I know it was easy, but it felt like for the first time in a long time that I'm watching it, and I've written down something like, I've got 15 minutes gone. No idea how the game will end up, but passing the ball really well. Keeping the ball really... I've got another one.
I think I'd class that as good passing, though. It was just...
No, but I think this is the point, and I've got another one. Keeping the ball, even though they've got no idea what to do with it. And I know I'm trying to squeeze in a positive here, but the one thing that I thought it did, West Ham didn't press, but they have it's not a quick press, but they do have a stage where the player nearest to the ball jogs up. They were running from side to side, and we did it for 15, 20 minutes. And Lundberg mentioned it after the game about West Ham getting tired. And I remember, we talk about the Invincibles and we talk about that great team. And when they played well, it was an incredible thing to watch. But a lot of games in that era under Wenger, it was about keeping the ball and making the opposition tire by just working it from side to side, and then we'd have a bit of pace, a bit of quality, a bit of skill. A Bergkamp, an Omri, a Vieira, Pires, Lundberg. Somebody would do something special, we'd score, and then the team was behind. They would have to come at us even more, and we could pick them off. And that was how we played for 2 or 3 seasons. It was wonderful to watch. And although yesterday wasn't, it was slow and it was turgid and it wasn't right, at least we kept the ball, and for weeks now we haven't had the confidence to even do that. And I thought as the game got more stretched, the passing got a bit quicker, but the fact that everybody was comfortable on the ball because they'd had to, I bet, we passed a lot. We had 85% possession, I think, when West Ham scored. But the problem is, and I'll throw this back over to you, the problem is, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, as long as we score first, this is okay. But if they score, then what the fuck's going to go on? And they scored.
I don't think we was ever going to score first because we wasn't getting the ball forward. And I kind of disagree with you saying, like, they've got the confidence to keep the ball. I think it was the exact opposite. They didn't have any confidence, so they just played the easiest ball to the guy 2 yards away from them. And it was sort of like, it's your problem now. And then it was just, instead of solving problems, it was just transferring the problem to another one of your teammates. I mean, look, Leno, everyone knows I'm not a big fan of his kicking, but the amount of times he stitched people up yesterday, like it'd take a goal kick out to Xhaka, who had his back to goal with sort of 2-3 players around him, and his only option was to roll it back, and then you're at square one. But now instead of having a set piece where they can't close you down, you've got Antonio haring down on you, and then he has to shank the kick, or he stitches someone else up and just transfers the problem. I didn't see it as confidence, especially not in the first half. I think in the second half, after the goal, I know we're going to get onto it, they started playing with a bit more confidence and done a few things a bit different. But in the first half, I saw it the exact opposite. Like, literally, it was just like, I've got no confidence to try a ball that someone may intercept, so I'm just going to give it 2 yards to my centre-back, who's then probably going to give it 2 yards to the other centre-back, who's going to give it back, or just go to the left-back and just... Like, usually you say, they're working it across the pitch. I don't think they were working it. I think they were just, he's open, I'll give it to him.
Yeah, you may be right, Tam. I'm not saying it was perfect, but let's just jump forward. We'll come back and we'll talk about all the incidents in the game. But that last 20 minutes when we were 3-1 up, and, tell me there was a confident Arsenal fan out there in the world who has watched us over the past 8 weeks and thought, fucking hell, we're going to hold on to this. But we reverted back to that possession football. Slow, making the easiest ball, making it safe, working for each other and keeping possession. And we restricted West Ham to nothing.
I still think we moved the ball quickly. They were simple passes, but they were happening quickly. So you can pull teams out of shape when the ball's moving quickly. Like what you said earlier, they were just shifting across. And I think they kind of were looking to press us in the first 10 minutes and then thought there is absolutely no point because they're not going anywhere. And then they just let us play at the back. As I said, 85% until the goal. I'd imagine at least 65% of that was between Socrates, Chambers and Leno. And I think towards the end, even though we were still playing the simple passes, on paper it was still Socrates to Chambers, Chambers to the fullback, cut inside, go to one of the centre midfielders and drop back. It was all happening quickly. And it means that they've got to shift across. They were constantly moving. They were they were shit scared of Pepe, just his pace. And then he kept coming to feet. So they were scared of him going in behind. And then when he comes short, it was easy for him to pick up the ball. And these are all things that came with confidence. Ainsley Maitland-Niles was first half, got the ball, knocked it down the line. He didn't give a shit if Pepe had any. He could have 3 players around him. Ainsley couldn't care less. He was knocking it down the line, and then Pepe was either getting caught or we might win a throw on, or once or twice he managed to wriggle out of it and keep the ball. Second half, or especially after the goals, Maitland-Niles went for a few little drags inside and ran into centre midfield and switched to play. And suddenly it's like, instead of just a 2-yard ball down the line and putting Pepe in trouble, or Ozil in trouble, whoever was over that side of the pitch, it was like you're making the pitch huge, you're making it hard to defend against. And we've seen Maitland-Niles do that millions of times, and he is quick, but he just didn't have that confidence to drag it inside the player and go for a little run. Whereas after a couple of goals, it just completely changed.
Yeah, so then the worst thing happened, wasn't it? I mean, we're slow, turgid, passing the ball around, and we go 1-0 down. What did you think of that? Tell me, you're in the ground. Isn't it just one of those goals that we've just conceded all year long? There's nothing really. It was a nothing ball. It was a few balls and we just didn't have the desire to clear the ball. We didn't have the desire to attack the ball, didn't you? It was just a really soft goal.
Yeah, as you said, it's one you kind of see Arsenal concede all the time and almost expect them to concede. It's difficult because I was in row 2 last night, so you don't see the what's the word? Like, do you know when things are really tight and it happens in a small space? You don't see the exact details of it. So obviously, I came out after the game and I read back through the messages in the order they came through, and people were saying Xhaka had ducked and Aubameyang pulled out of a challenge and someone else done this, and you don't really see that at the time. All I can say is the goal was half coming because the ball was just in that area of the pitch for so long. It wasn't like they were knocking on the door, but all the chances were there. I think Antonio's chance was just before that, where he got in down the left and Leno made a decent save. But anytime anyone sort of half looked like attacking, it was them. And there was no real surprise when they scored. It was just like, oh, it's happened again. To be honest, the VAR check, no one I don't know, I'm not speaking for everyone, but everyone I've spoke to had a clue what they were checking for, and we knew it was something because it took so long. We knew there was a debate about something, but we didn't have a clue. It was only after the game I found out potential handball. I've seen it back, and I'm not really sure.
The nonsense that is VAR again, Tony, it's everything I hate about it. There was nothing wrong with the goal. They were looking again and again and again just to see if the ball had flicked his arm on the way in. But it was obvious on the first 2 looks that it was a goal. Even if it did brush his arm, it was a header. It wasn't forced in with his arm. It was a goal. And yet, how much time did they waste?
I mean, on one hand, I'm going to defend it, and on another hand, I'm going to agree with you. If he's headed it onto his arm, and under the current rules, so it's not a VAR problem, it's a rule problem. It is handball if he's headed it onto his arm. So I'm not gonna.
Tony, don't disagree at all. But what I'm saying is, it was fairly obvious on the first 2 showings that it had actually hit his head, and if it hit his arm on the way through, you're not going to be able to see it. It didn't divert the ball. It didn't make any difference.
That's what I mean. That doesn't matter.
But you can't. No, there wasn't a camera angle to show it. It was not. It was a header. It wasn't one of those that flicked off. There wasn't any deviation on the ball. It was, when you look at it again and again and again, it was a goal. It was like you kept watching it, and they're showing replay after replay. And, I've seen it twice and thought, fuck yeah, it's a goal. They're not going to disallow it. And then you've got the commentators looked at it twice and went, well, I don't know why they're still looking at that. They're looking to see if it's handball, but he's got his head on it. And yet they kept time. I don't know how long it went. It felt like 2 minutes while they're just looking at the same decision.
But this is where I disagree in a sense, because I'm still not sure if it was handball or not. And I'm not saying it definitely was. I'm not saying it definitely wasn't. But I've seen it back on TV a few times, and I'm still a bit like, I'm not sure. So,
but is it? What I'm saying is, it was never clear and obvious. It wasn't one of those.
It doesn't have to be. Again, this is another thing. They when they launched VAR, they came out of this clear and obvious phrase, and now everyone thinks that that's the only thing that VAR governs by, and it's not. Like, it's like when someone's offside by a millimetre and they go, it's not clear and obvious, it's a millimetre. It doesn't matter. Offside is offside, and handball is handball.
No. But that what you're talking about is a black and white decision, whether you agree with the millimetres or not, and when the frame is stopped. But with handball, again, it's a subjective one because you can't tell, so it's a subjective decision. So
but they show us 4 angles. They've got about 30. So that's another thing. What they're showing you on the screen isn't necessarily what VAR are looking at. It's like, that's why sometimes you get lines drawn on the screen dodgily, because usually the broadcaster have put them over the picture. We don't get to see everything they see. And look, it took way too long. And I kind of agree with you. In the end, it's inconclusive. I still wouldn't say it definitely didn't hit his arm. And it did take way too long. But I think it's a rule problem, because if that's brushed his arm, it's made absolutely no fucking difference. But the rule is your hand or arm can't aid you in scoring a goal. And if that's the rule that they have to govern by, and I think what stung them as well, I can't remember who did Norwich. I think it was Southampton beat Norwich last week, and Southampton's equaliser. The guy's dribbling, the ball's on the floor, and he kind of half slips, and it brushes his arm. I didn't spot it in normal time. I don't think anyone did. And then in the end, Sky, about 20 minutes later, found one angle that no one had ever seen before, where it hit one of his arm hairs. Yeah. And then they showed that to the referees organisation after the game, and the refs VAR had to come out and say, we're wrong, we've missed it. And when that's the last round of fixtures, I think they've kind of got to go, oh, well, they have to check these things, because they don't want another occasion where VAR has been plainly wrong. We're seeing in a moment, we're saying it took too long and it's a bit inconclusive, but had that hit an inch lower, I'm not sure if it's shoulder or arm. I don't know where the cutoff is, but an inch lower, it's possibly arm, and then you get people complaining and they have to admit VAR's wrong again. It shouldn't have took that long, and I probably, in the sense where I agree with you, is if it's inconclusive, watch it twice and go, we're not sure, we don't have anything that can confirm either way. But I said they have to check them because they get hammered for mistakes. It was like the Felipe Anderson when he went down looking for a penalty early on. I don't know if your camera was on the ref, but we went to take the goal kick, and he blew the whistle and told Leno to stop. And Leno was like, what? And Mike Dean clearly like signalled, and you could see in mouth, I know it's not a foul, but I have to check it. And someone moaned, and he went, I have to. Like, is it like he pointed to his ear in the sky, saying they're checking it. Someone moaned, and he went, they have to. So look, stuff like that, when they know it is clearly 1,000,000% not a penalty, they need to get it over with quicker. But I kind of half feel for them in that situation where they have got a couple wrong and people want to absolutely hammer them for it.
I just think it's another, it was so obvious after such a short time that it wasn't going to be a clear decision, didn't affect anything. Just get on with it.
I think the effect thing doesn't play a part.
It's common sense though. Who wants to...
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you saying it, I don't agree with you in saying that it was obvious it wasn't going to get changed, because I still don't know. It, like, looking at that, had it been overturned, I'm not saying it should have. Had it been overturned, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, if it had been overturned and that had been an Arsenal player, I would have been enraged. It's just
I'd have been fucking pissed off about it. I wouldn't be surprised. It was like,
but the fact that, all right, look, let's get over it, because we're boring people to death with VAR. But the fact that they, for 2 minutes it took 2 minutes to look, and then they come up with no change in decision. That's not right for football.
No, I completely agree. It took too long, but I don't think it was one of the. It's not like our goals. I know we're going to get onto them, but the check, you wouldn't even, by the time we celebrated and got back to centre circle, the checks have been done, play like goal, carry on the game. It wasn't like that. There was something to look at, but it did take way too long.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get on to the good stuff. I mean, we go off at half-time. We're 1-0 down. It's the familiar depression. I don't think he made any changes at half-time, did he? We'd already had the enforced change of Tierney going off for Kolasinac.
Yeah, what are the chances that Ornstein in his Monday little briefing said it wasn't just a groin issue that worried Arsenal about signing Tierney, it was his shoulder, and we kind of thought, well, we've never heard anything about that, sort of where's it coming from? And then that night he goes off with a shoulder injury, and seemingly from nothing. I didn't even see I've not seen any replays, to be honest, but I've not seen any contact or anything. And you just think, what are the chances of an injury we didn't know about, got reported that morning, and then he goes off with it in 20 minutes into the next game?
Yeah. I've gone off Ornstein, though, haven't you, since he's joined the Athletic?
I was never a big fan anyway.
Well, I liked the fact that as a journalist, what he did was he only reported things that he seemed to know to be true. So when it came out, and that's very rare in journalism, and we're brought up with a shit clickbait journalism we've got these days, but you had at least somebody in Ornstein that when he said something it proved to be true, and then he sold out, joined the Athletic, and suddenly it's all sensationalism stuff. And I just, in an instant, I would say the guy's ruined his career, because now he's just one of the pack. Anyway, just my view on that. So we come back out of the second half. We say we've had enforced changes. Tierney. Actually, there is one incident in the first half I think we should talk about. The foul on Pepe by what's his name? Cresswell.
I've got to be 100% honest. I thought it was the other end to me, and it didn't look great in the ground. I watched the Sky half-hour highlights package. I recorded it last night. The one that's just after the game is half-hour package, and I watched it this morning, and they didn't show it. So I don't know.
Well, for me, it was. They talk about bringing in rules to stop the jeopardy of players getting injured, and I've got nothing wrong with the tackle that you take out take the ball out of the player, you follow through, take the player out, show him you're there. I haven't got an issue with it, but this was worse. This was one of these that he sort of got the ball with one leg, scissored him with the other. And I thought Pepe was done. When you see it in slow motion, his knee twists, and you think, and he's just wrapped. It's a dangerous tackle. He knows exactly what he's doing. He hasn't come across the ball and cleared it. He's come across the ball with one foot and scissored him with the other. It's absolutely deliberate, knows exactly what he's doing. It's a very smart defender, but it was absolutely a booking. Absolutely a booking.
What I will say, as I said, I've not seen, apart from 70 yards away, I've not saw more than that with the depth of the stands at West Ham. But what I will say is Cresswell's method of defending against Pepe is, if I'm close enough, I'm going to kick him. That was how he decided. It was like proper old school Sunday League left back who's playing against a quick winger. You're near me, I will kick you. And I'll see if you still fancy it next time. And if you come near me again, I'll kick you again. Yeah. So I can't go on that exact tackle, but that was how he decided to defend. And a lot of people, including Arsenal fans, are going, we got lucky Cresswell got subbed off because Pepe was in his pocket and he had, like, Pepe didn't know what to do. And I was like, you're just getting kicked. I don't know what more he could do.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite pleased with Pepe that he did come back and play with us. Well, he got better and better. I wrote in one of my little notes last night, the sad thing for me was that it was such a bad tackle. And in all good Arsenal sides of the past, and in all good sides, there's a minder within that side. And in good sides, there's 3 or 4, where you've got a player who is going to get retribution on Cresswell to make sure he knows that if he does that again, someone's going to come and get him. Your Roy Keanes, your Patrick Vieiras, and all right, I've named 2 of the big names there, but there is no one in our side. It doesn't seem to be anyone in our side who's going to look after Pepe, who's going to go over to Cresswell and threaten him. And I know what I'm saying may sound wrong, but that's just missing in our football team. There is no one to stand up and fight in that side. They all look a little bit lightweight, a little bit cowardly.
The one defence I'll put on that is Kolasinac wasn't on the pitch yet, because he loves running 60 yards to push someone over. That's pretty much what he's there for.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking through it. Kolasinac was one. I would think Guendouzi, funny enough, is another. He's I'm not sure if he could fight his way out of a wet paper bag because he's a very slight character, but at least he would get in there and protect. And Xhaka, you would expect and hope to do that, and was nowhere near. It was just wrong for me. That was you want Cresswell to have to think about that again. And in the second half, Cresswell took Pepe out again, and Cresswell was limping at the time, knowing he was going off, and his last action in that game was, right, let's fucking take Pepe out. And luckily Pepe didn't get injured in that tackle. And he got booked for that, and it should have been a sending off.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 incidents you've brought up were the not subtle ones, but even like standing tackles where he's just on his back, he was nibbling at his ankles. It was everything. As I said, you've brought up the 2 memorable ones, but every time they was in the same area of the pitch, Cresswell went for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying he was trying to injure him. It was the typical let him know you're there.
Yeah.
But he's done it every time. Usually a let him know you're there is the first tackle and then see if they shit themselves. And Pepe seemed not to, so he just kept doing it.
But do you see what I mean? If we haven't got anyone in that side who goes and then takes Cresswell out, we haven't got anyone who then says, right, you're going to do that to him. Pepe's a lightweight French winger, he's not a tough boy, but you want someone in that side to go and put their mark on Cresswell. You want them to say, we see what you fucking do and you leave him alone. Now, all through Arsenal history, we've got players like that. Your Tony Adams, Steve Bold, Martin Keown, Dixon Winterburn, they all fought for each other. If somebody was getting picked on, they would go and have a go. Ray Parler, throughout that team, there was always, Lauren was a tough man. There were all these people that would defend their teammate. Bergkamp, great example, tough man, and we just don't seem to have that. Pepe's getting kicked all game long, and it's just allowed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So, it took us a little bit of a while to get going in the second half, but then we did get going, and wasn't it a joy? The passing got a bit quicker, the movement got a little bit more obvious, and the goal that started it was 3 passes or 2 passes and a shot that were just great. Ozil to Kolasinac first time almost to Martinelli, and Martinelli looks all day long the most natural goal scorer in our side and just slots it into the corner.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give... I don't think Xhaka had a good game, but I want to give him and Ferreira, both of them, to be honest, a bit of credit, because in the first half they were pretty much side by side, which made them really easy to stop. For the first time, Xhaka sort of dropped deep. He was almost in a left-backish position because Kolasinac had gone, and he fired a ball forward to Torreira, who was in advance of him. It's a great ball from Torreira to Kolasinac, very underrated and probably something we wouldn't expect from him. And then the good cutback. Martinelli done well to hold his run because a lot of times during the game he'd been coming in and it was almost like him and Aubameyang were up top when Kolasinac got forward, but he held out a little bit and the ball fell perfect. I mean, we know if Kolasinac puts the ball in an area, he couldn't care less if anyone's there or not, which sometimes gets him a lot of abuse and people moan at him, oh, you'd not give it to anyone. But like yesterday, he didn't know that Martinelli was there. He puts that ball in the area every time he crosses the ball.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he doesn't look up. But it was a good ball, and Martinelli made those runs all night long, didn't he? I mean, Martinelli...
Yeah, certainly. One time, I don't know if Martinelli's seen what Kolasinac was doing, that he always sort of pulls it back into that area, so he's hung out instead of diving, like running into the 6-yard box, because had he done that, it would have gone behind him. But Kolasinac put that ball into him, and it's a composed finish. It's one you'd expect him to make, but you've got to remember it's his first Premier League start. He's 18 years old. He was playing in Fourth Division 6 months ago. So I think it's a sign of what we've seen in him that you'd be very, very disappointed if he missed that, and obviously he didn't.
And then, the game's changed. You said it right at the start of the show that one goal that early on, and we were a different side. One goal can change a game. Suddenly the pace went up. Suddenly the confidence went up. Suddenly we just looked like a little bit of Arsenal of old. There was a bit of a swagger in the way that we played our football. Yeah,
I mean, not going back to the Brighton game, but it was the same then. After 15 minutes after we scored, again, we looked like a football team and then stopped for some reason. And I think that was the joy that the goals came close together, because we was all sitting there thinking, don't stop, just carry on, keep moving the ball quickly, keep doing what you're doing. And they did. There was none, even when the ball, as you said, the ball was being played about at the back still, even at 1-1, but it was one quick pass and then look to get it into midfield. If you have to come back, do it quickly, and then it's popped off straight away. And we just stayed like that, and that's what we kept our foot on the gas, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was the Pepe show. It was the goal that we sort of, I think if he'd have scored in the first game he'd played, where he came close to scoring that sort of goal, I wonder how different our season would have been. I mean, he's a player that's obviously been left out of the side by Emery and by Freddie. He hasn't quite shown what we wanted him to show. I mean, he's a new player to the Premier League. He's a new player to this club. It's never going to be easy. But in those early games, those chances didn't go in, and he's got gradually worse. And I thought it was one of our better players last night in the fact that he kept trying and trying and trying.
Yeah, I mean, I said this a few weeks ago, and it was the same in the first half yesterday. Our whole attacking game plan was give it to him and hope he can run 40 yards. And that will get us up the pitch. That was literally the only way we got up the pitch, was either a long ball in the corner towards him or giving him the ball on the halfway line with a couple of players around him and Creswell nibbling at his heels. And hopefully he can turn and go on a little run. I think both chances came not directly from that, but I mean, the Ozil header was, he'd done that and then passed it across and we end up getting the cross in. And the other chance was like that. I thought he was especially in the first half, he was our only only way we was going to get forward. I wouldn't say only bright spot, because I thought Martinelli was good, but it was the only way we was ever going to get into an attacking position. The goal is exactly what you said. Like, it's what we expected of him. It's what we've seen him do so many times in France. And how many times have we seen him hit that same shot that's just gone wide or clipped the outside of the post? He had one at Liverpool, we all thought it was in. We had one at Sheffield United, we all thought it was in. And the keepers were massively scrambling, and they've just gone wide. He's had a couple in home games that have been similar. And that was the one that obviously done what it was supposed to. And the celebration, I can tell you, right in front of me, was pure relief. It wasn't a goal celebration. That was getting everything out. I mean, he ran, shouted, done a knee slide. Everyone bundled him, and then after he done the celebration, the looking celebration. But that was the celebration part of it was an afterthought. It was just pure relief. And you can see the way the other players reacted as well. It was just like a massive sort of weight off. Well, hopefully, it was a massive weight off his shoulders to get the first open play goal, and he can kick on from it.
Yeah.
I think we do have to accept though that, and I don't mind this. I like this type of player. We have to accept that he is going to lose the ball. Like, for me, that type of winger, you run at your defender pretty much every time. And if you lose it 3 times and beat him the 4th time, okay. Because when you do beat him, you're going to be in a really dangerous position. I think we've got to accept that he's that type of player. I don't want us, and I think we do at times, but maybe it's just because we've seen no end product from him so far, that as soon as he loses a ball, it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, it cost 72 million, can't beat his fullback. For me, I don't mind that. As I said, just keep doing it. As long as you don't lose your confidence, as long as you don't lose it 3 times and then think, oh, I'm not going to try anymore. For me, you're that type of winger, and that is your skill set. You're so strong on the ball. You're quick, you're tricky, you can go both ways. Just keep doing it. And I think we have to accept that. Otherwise, he is really going to struggle with us.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to when I talked about the good Arsenal sides of the last couple of decades that have passed the ball around, have passed teams to death, and then had a moment of brilliance. An Omri, a Bergkamp, a Pires, a Lundberg. Somebody did something spectacular, and then we scored. And that's sort of how I saw that game last night. Is that Freddie at least got them keeping the ball, and then relied on our superstar players that we've got, Aubameyang, Pepe, to do something to change the game. Ozil, and I could see something there last night. I just thought, I mean, it is West Ham; they're as bad as us, if not worse. But I could see that, and that's what you want Pepe to do. I don't care how many times he loses a ball, as long as he keeps trying, and when it does come off, we do something with it. I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just think you have to accept that, and I think that it came from moving the ball quicker. We got the space, like when Pepe got the ball. There was a couple of times. There's one time I thought Masuaku fouled him on the edge of the area. I think he nutmegged him, and the ref didn't give a foul. As I said, Cresswell was every time he got a bit of space and ran at them, he done well. I just think in the first half, especially, he was moving the ball so slow that when he was getting it, he wasn't getting the space to turn or get any acceleration to run at them. We moved the ball a bit quicker, which, as you said, it means they've got to shift across, and if they don't do it quick enough, then he gets the ball, or whoever gets the ball, to get it in a bit of space with a bit of time to work. I thought Ozil was quietly very good in the second half, like as in there's no headlines to write about him. But again, he got that ball because we'd moved the ball quicker. Instead of getting it back to goal with Declan Rice and someone else breathing down your neck, he got it with that half a yard. And that all just came from upping the tempo that tiny bit. And it's something that you say it like that and it sounds really easy. Oh, just pass the ball quicker. But obviously it's not.
No, absolutely. And then rather than make us endure, I don't know what it was, 20 minutes, 25 minutes of misery and hanging on, we did what we haven't done all season, and we went up and scored a third and sort of put the game to bed.
Yeah, it goes on to what I said earlier, that they just carried on. Like, we was all sitting there, don't stop, don't settle. And they didn't. They just carried on moving the ball quickly. And it wasn't, I don't think it was like we went for their throat all-out attack. We just carried on moving the ball quickly and saw what came. And then when the space came, we gave it to the guy in space. I think the second and third goal are very similar in that we've worked it wide to Pepe, who's in space because we've met the ball quicker. Obviously, one time he's cutting and shoot, the other time he's crossed it. But I think they're very similar. I think they both came from Ozil picking the ball up, like sort of left of centre and zipping it across to the other side to Aubameyang or Pepe. And that's how both goals, I think they're very similar. But I don't think it was like we're all out attack now. I think it was just playing the game as is instead of trying to play a system.
Yeah, well, the confidence was there, wasn't it? That's what I'm saying. There was suddenly they played with a little bit of swagger. Once they scored that first goal, it was sort of like, we can do this. It was visible relief when we scored. There was visible, enjoyment when we scored. There was visible, the back stiffened and the heads came up when we scored that first goal, and suddenly they started to believe in themselves, and it was just a joy to see, because we haven't seen any of that positivity. It's 60 odd days since we've won in the Premier League. I don't want to go back to Brighton, but I didn't know the statistic about our worst run since 1977. But I was saying to the guy next to me, I don't think I've seen it as bad as this since the Terry Neal, Don Howe years, which I would say was the worst I ever knew at Arsenal. And they went on for years. They went on for years and years. We've touched that area of despair. We've touched that lowly limits. There are many, many Arsenal fans who have watched this club all of their lives and who have never seen Arsenal go 2 months without a win in the Premier League.
I think me included.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess if 77 was the last worst time, then it's few and far between. But it was just...
The run before that was Graham. I think they said 92 or 93, and I was 3 or 4, so... Like, I don't remember. I was alive. I don't remember it. So this is the worst since probably Wenger probably went on a 3 or 4 game run without winning at one point, and that was probably the worst I'd ever known it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's anything else on the game? I mean, okay, oh, that's it. That's got one more note I got from last night. You know, if those who have listened to me for years bang on about timekeeping, it's one of the things that I hate about the game of football is the way that teams can run down a clock by time wasting, and we've seen it a lot this year. At the Emirates especially, was that we played the other day? Was it Southampton, where every time one of their players headed the ball, they went down for a head injury?
Yeah, and we lost 3 head injuries in 8 minutes.
Yeah, and you know when a team's doing it, you know that it's almost part of a plan, right? If we're up, if we're winning, if we're getting a point at the Emirates, let's run the clock down. And head injuries are one of those that they can just do, and it was embarrassing. But the bit that always irritates me is that they get away with it because there's never enough time added on to compensate for that time wasting. It's a real thing that I want changed in the game. I would always want the timekeeping to be taken away from the referee. Let's have a clock that stops for anything that's out of the ordinary. And it never happens. And then last night, I'm thinking it's going to be 5 minutes because their trainer's been on twice, and they go 7 minutes. I mean, what's all that all about?
Yeah, I mean, I said, as the board was coming up, I said to my mate, I think 6. Yeah, it was... It's one of them. It's probably right, but we see it wrong so often.
Yeah,
moan about when it's right.
Well, when we're 1-0 down and with the trainers on, I'm thinking, I bet they don't add this on, and I'm thinking, before we scored, I'm thinking, well, they've got to be 3 or 4 minutes added on for that. Xhaka going down after he got hit in the face with a ball, and you just don't expect it. And then, of course, but at least we didn't panic. In the West Ham fans, I don't know what it's like at the ground, but the cameras are showing that when that 7 minutes went up, you normally get a big roar from the home crowd to say, right, we've got a chance, we can get back in this. And yet there wasn't many people left to cheer.
They start. I've genuinely never seen a fan base leave so early. About the 75th minute, I'm not saying emptied out, but the amount of people that were leaving sort of 75 to 80 was crazy, especially considering it's Arsenal, who have been a lot shit, and are known for conceding one and shitting themselves and letting teams back in or giving teams a chance. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. It's a sign of where they're at as well. Obviously, they're not doing very well and whatnot, but the ground was so empty, and they just... Even as it got to the 85th minute, and me and my mates were saying, this ain't over because it's Arsenal, but West Ham ain't interested in trying to press this game. Unless we gave them something, they were never going to create anything themselves. But the thing is, it's Arsenal, and you can never bank against us not throwing it into our own goal somehow.
Well, that was it. When the 7 minutes come up, you think, are the players going to go, oh, for fuck's sake, and it just will take one mistake and it all goes wrong. But thankfully it was West Ham, and I think we have to, with all this excitement that we've got, me and you, I can feel it in your voice, I'm sure you can tell in mine, it's so much more fun when we've gone years where we're used to winning, and the odd defeat makes us all miserable. 2 on the trot makes us apoplectic. But when you've got 2 months without a win, it just gets depressing. And I'm a big Arsenal supporter, and I'll support this club whatever happens, but it just gets so depressing. And you think that with 7 minutes, they put 7 minutes up, you can think everyone, the Arsenal fans around the world, the players must think, oh, for fuck's sake, thank God Mustafi's not playing because he'll give up something,
It was like a carnival atmosphere coming out there yesterday. There was some people going, "Oh, look, the first half was so bad; it's massively papered over the cracks." And we was like, "We don't care. That's history. Did you not see the last half hour?
Yeah,
got to win the league."
Yeah, I do love the optimism of Arsenal fans. So we see the 7 minutes. Anything else in the game particularly that struck you?
No, not really. I think we've covered it quite in depth compared to what we've been doing the last few weeks. No, I think we've pretty much touched on everything that people will want covered.
I normally have my 3-2-1s all ready to go, and I was I was watching the game thinking of it. I've been thinking about it today, and I'm still not 100%. So I'll let you go first. For those of you, sorry, let me just say, for those of you who don't listen to your first time listeners to the Clock End Talk podcast, obviously the best Arsenal podcast out there. What we do each week is we rate our top 3 players, and someone somewhere is collating this, and that will give us a Clock End Talk Player of the Year at the end of the season. So we give 3 points to our best player, 2 points to our second best, and 1 point to our third best player. So you're giving your 3 points to tonight, Tony?
Pepe, I don't think he was the best player on the pitch, but the amount of times I do this, and I've done it for Aubameyang and Lacazette and other people in the past, I think he was the match winner. Obviously, he's got a goal and an assist, and he's got an important times. So, as I said, there's been games where I think people have been terrible, but they've got 2 goals or they've got the winning goal, and you've gone, well, they've won the game for us. So I thought Pepe was good, but not the best player on the pitch. But I think he probably had the biggest impact on the result. So Pepe is my 3.
I think that's a really, really fair and good choice. And I'm now going to not give Pepe any points because he was in my short list of 5, and now he's got 3. He had a fairly quiet first half. As did all the players. But I thought exactly what you said. He did. He was the match winner. He was. He scored the winning goal and he set up the third to kill it off. So yeah, very good shout. I'm going to give mine my 3 points to Mesut Ozil. And once again, don't think it was the best game he's had for the club. I don't think. I'm sure we'll see better, and I'm sure he'll have more memorable games. But I thought I haven't seen the statistics, but it just felt to me that every time he got the ball, we never lost it. And he was looking for that pass. If we did lose it, it was going for attacking balls. I thought it was just a joy having Ozil back in the side playing with that confidence. And I'm just going to give him my 3 points. Your 2?
Martinelli, who I actually thought was the best player on the pitch, and to be honest, I doubt he listens, but could feel hard done by for not getting the 3 because he also scored and it was a vital goal, getting it back to 1-0. But yeah, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. I just think Pepe probably had more impact on the result.
Yeah, I've got Martinelli down in my list. Once you said Pepe, I nearly went Martinelli for my 3. I just think he just looks a natural goal scorer, and he looks. Do you know when he scored, the first thing he did was run up and try and get the ball off the goalkeeper, and it just shows that you need winners at this level, and we're a little bit shy of that in this side. But you could see that his objective was to win the game, and he's just got his first goal in the Premier League, in his first full start in the Premier League, and you would think that a player of that age might just be selfish and run over to the corner flag and celebrate with his teammates, but he wanted that ball back. He wanted to get up the other end and give us a chance to win. So,
and no one would have blamed him if he ran and knee slid and done a backflip. No one would have criticised it at all. No,
but he wanted to win. I think Martinelli really is the future of this football club. He looks a real decent player. So he's got my 2 points. Where are you going to put your 1?
There's a few that is in the hat for this. I'm probably going to go Chambers. I don't think he really put a foot wrong. I don't know if it's their really shit attacking, but I don't think they had another chance, barring the Antonio one and the goal. He just looked assured, and considering how bad he was against Norwich, I know he played right back, to come in and be that self-assured and that confident. And Antonio's a handful. We know that he's very good in the air. He's very strong. He's very, very quick. And to be honest, it's like he wasn't playing. And then they bring Haller on, who's meant to be unbelievable in the air, and I don't think he won a header, or if he did, it wasn't dangerous. So I'm going to go Chambers, but I think Socrates is also in with a shout. He went back to the Socrates I like, which is head it, kick it, foul it.
Yeah. And
that Socrates was our best defender last year, and there was no complaints about him last year. I think people are being a bit revisionist when now he makes a mistake. They go, "Oh, I never liked him." He did, because last year there wasn't a single complaint about him. And now they've tried to make him play football, which he can't do. And he starts making mistakes, and then his confidence goes with it. I think yesterday he went back to kick it 60 yards, head it 60 yards, or foul the person that's going past me. And that's the Socrates I like, and I want to see playing for us. And if he continues and goes back to that, he is my first choice centre-back. So although I thought Chambers had a better game, that is the type of Socrates I want to see.
Yeah, it was good. Very good shout, Tony. I agree. Chambers was on my short list. I've got to say Leno was also on my short list. Not so much for that he had that much to do in this game, but I just think he's been immense over the last 2 months in this terrible period, and he's made some great saves. And yesterday, again, his handling was really good, and I thought his distribution was a lot better yesterday. But I'm going to give my 1 point to a player that I've been disappointed with all year, which was Lucas Torreira. He made one almost calamitous mistake. I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour in.
I wanted to run on the pitch and headbutt him.
Yeah, honestly, it was just
Stupid.
the most stupid backheel flick when it across
Well,
field.
it's just after we'd conceded as well.
Yeah.
Like, and, everything was wrong with it.
And for me coming to give him a point for that's almost the point I want to make, is because at that point I'm a Guendouzi fan. I'm thinking, fuck me, you've got your chance to get back into this team, and we are so fragile, and we've just let a goal in, and you make that fucking stupid decision. And at that point I wanted him taken off, but I thought from that moment on, I think it was like a shake-up for him. I thought his passing got crisper, his movement was better, his forward passing was great, and his energy was great. And as you said, from him playing side to side, you then saw a little bit of them splitting up a little bit, and Torreira being a little bit, well, the pair of them being a little more aggressive and passing the ball quicker. And I thought it was exceptional, and I think that's just worth mentioning. Well, I think that's the game done.
Yeah, just quickly, I think you mentioned earlier that we're going to be having more hosts and people. I'm not a host, whatever you call me. We're going to have more of me in the future. And Liam's one of them, who also does our ratings. Just looking through his ratings yesterday, he gave Martinelli man of the match with an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
He also gave Chambers an 8, so you're fair to presume that he would have Martinelli 3, Chambers 2. And his 1 would have been Leno or Pepe, both with 7 by the looks of things. He scored Ozil very low though. I was quite surprised when I read it. He scored Ozil a 5, and I think it was the worst on the pitch he gave Ozil.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you saw Ozil. I just thought Ozil was, it was just, look, it weren't an exceptional game for him, but he just never gave the ball away. I want to have a check on the stats.
I thought he'd done nothing in the first half, either good or bad, but when he does nothing, that's when he gets most of the complaints against him, to be honest. And I thought in the second half, as I said earlier, I thought he was very good, but quietly, he done the stuff that doesn't get the headlines. As you said, keeping the ball, always passing it forward at pace. But if it doesn't lead to someone having a shot and scoring, you kind of forget that. Like in 2 weeks, people will go, oh, what did Ozil do against West Ham? But I think if you look at the second and third goal, both of them have come from angled forward passes, and you might think they're easy, and they might be easy, but the fact is no one else does them. So if they are that easy, everyone should be doing them, and they don't. He zipped the ball forward into Aubameyang twice. He's got the ball wide. One time Pepe scored, one time Pepe's crossed it for Aubameyang. And that's the stuff that no one else is doing. So whether it is easy or not, if you're the only one doing it, you're going to take the credit for it. It's like when people moan about Aubameyang scoring tap-ins. Okay, tap-ins are easy. Why isn't everyone getting 30 tap-ins a year? He's the one doing it, so he's the one that gets the credit for it. And you've got to be like that with Ozil. Liam gave Maitland-Niles and Ozil both a 5, and I thought Maitland-Niles was pretty good as well. I just think he's another one of the boo boys that people have decided they don't like. So unless he does something exceptional, he starts off, like, if you start the game and nothing's happened yet and everyone starts off in, say, at a 6, Maitland-Niles starts at a 5 just because he's Maitland-Niles, and I think he's one of them, and Xhaka as well, and probably a couple of others.
Yeah, I agree with you on Maitland-Niles. I thought he, at the start, he looked so nervous. The club's all nervous, and he tried to, as you said, to put some balls down the line, whoever was there, whatever. But he learnt and got better and better, didn't he, as the game went on? I thought.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you've seen it. Henry done an interview a few years ago, and he said Ashley Cole was the key to the Invincibles, because you'd work the ball around the back, give it to Ashley Cole, and then he'd beat their winger or run inside, so their winger had to follow him, and then suddenly Perez would drift out or Henry would drift out, and their whole shape got fucked just because Ashley Cole would drag the winger inside a couple of yards. And in the second half, when we moved the ball quickly, I touched on it earlier, Maitland-Niles was more confident, running inside. Suddenly someone has to follow him, so then they can't double up on Pepe, or then Pepe can spin in behind because someone's come short to help with Maitland-Niles. And something so small as the left back or right back beating someone, not even beating them, but just dragging them out of position, fucks the whole team shape for the other team. And I thought he'd done a lot of that, again, once he got confident after we scored.
Yeah. And we won. We won. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with your questions that you posted on Twitter, where you can find us at @clockend_talk.
Cool.
And you can also post them on a WhatsApp group. I don't think we've got any on the WhatsApp group.
I got 2
right.
privately, so remind me of them before.
Okay, will do. Welcome back to the Clock End Talk podcast. You probably haven't been anywhere but in that virtual 2 minutes or 30 seconds. Maybe they put an ad in. Have we got Tez putting ads in this yet? Are we popular enough to get advertising time?
I don't think so. I think people might pay us to not put adverts in.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to do the questions that you sent in on the clock end underscore talk handle at Twitter. And Tony, you got a couple of questions that you had in from the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, so it's only from Maddie. I think everyone else put theirs on Twitter, but he doesn't have Twitter. So his first question is: has Martinelli nailed on his spot? Maybe not versus top teams, but against the lesser teams.
Do you know, I said earlier in this podcast that I think he's the future of the club for various reasons. One, he's obviously very young. Two, he's got the right attitude. But I thought we've had this conversation quite a lot this year about shoehorning Lacazette and Aubameyang into the same side. And, you know, I haven't always agreed with you, Tony. I mean, we there was a time when we wanted them both in, and then there was a time where, you know, we're putting Lacazette in and forcing Aubameyang to play on the left or the right, which wasn't getting the best out of him. But now it seems to me we've got Martinelli, who has played on the left, starting on the left-hand side, but he drifts naturally as a centre-forward, and he looks the most natural central player that I've seen at the club for a long time. You know, I don't mind Aubameyang playing on the left or the right. Their defensive capabilities aren't so good. But looking to the future, I think we might find a time where we've got no Lacazette, we've got no Aubameyang. They won't sign contracts. We'll get rid of them, and Martinelli, Nketiah, Saka, Pepe will be our front line.
Okay, I mean, he's got a couple more questions, but I'm just going to add on just quickly to that. Does he start for you against City on Sunday?
I think there's a very, very good argument for having that same team.
Yeah, I agree. Second question from Maddie is: do you think we miss top British Premier League talent other teams has abundantly? I know these are costly, but essential.
Well, British. Well, we have got a few in there, yes, didn't we? Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Callum Chambers.
I think I'm not sure, because obviously I'm just reading into the question. He's not said this, but I think he means like buying in. Like when you look at like obviously less. United brought Maguire. I think he means when we're looking in the transfer window, should we be looking more at British players or Premier League players? Because I don't think we've signed a player from a Premier League club for a long time.
No, I mean the argument against that is that we have got a very good academy, you know. So you know we've got players that come through. So I think Cahill might have been a better signing than Louise in hindsight. You know, I'm not 100% sure on that. And I think there is this sort of thing, you do pay a little bit extra for them. But I've always thought that the Premier League, you should have a core of British players. I think Wenger was the first manager that we had in the history of our club that went to a team that was just full of overseas players, and it left a sour taste in my mouth. I like the fact that, you know, when you've got an English core, when we had Tony Adams and we had, you know, I'm a fan of Sol Campbell, but when we had these players that run through the spine of the team, it always gave me a little sense of pride because I'm British and this is the English Premier League. But you know. I don't think squad is our issue at the moment. You know, I think it's quality that's the issue. What do you think?
I don't know if we should be. Like, I agree with you that I don't even think the quality of the players is much of an issue. To be honest, I just think there's, as I said, it's a confidence thing. In terms of should we buy more British? I mean, the problem not British Premier League proven. When we do buy them, it's the players the other teams don't want. I mean, I'm looking at Cech and David Luiz, and the problem is the funds. I mean, say, look, for me, Ben Chilwell's the best left back in the league, but we got Tierney for 25. Chilwell would have probably cost 70. Is he 45 million better than Tierney? Is he losing out on another player better? It's hard to say at the moment because Tierney's not really played yet, but your answer would have to be probably not. And then you start looking at all these other players. Anyone that's a little bit proven in the Premier League, suddenly their price, you have to slim down your target. So instead of signing 2 players, you've got to sign 1, but for that extra amount. And it's a difficult balance. I mean, it's rumoured that Emery really wanted Harry Maguire. I wouldn't have paid 80 million for him personally. And I like Harry Maguire. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just don't think he's an 80 million player. But that's the difficulty you have, and I don't know the answer. probably my long-winded way of saying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that because you look at United, we haven't really touched on the Premier League. We've had a terrible run of games, and yet we're still not completely out of being in fourth place, and yet we should be. We're 7 points off fourth, and we're 7 points off relegation. But you look at United, who were terrible, equally bad as us for the best part of the season. They look to have found a bit of form. They played very well against Tottenham and very well against Manchester City, and they've got that good defence, and they've bought it by buying Crystal Palace's left back, who's a Premier League player, and Maguire, who's a Premier League player, and maybe that has helped. It's taken him a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one. Look, again, I think Wan-Bissaka's quality is probably lacking a bit offensively, but great defensively. Probably the best defensive right back in the league. But he'd had one season, albeit a very good one, but not a 10 out of 10 season, not a player of the year season, but one very good season.
And 50 million.
And he's 50 million.
Yeah.
In time, that will probably turn out to be a good deal, but it's just a massive risk.
Yeah.
And then finally, one last question from Maddie is: there was a lot of exits in the transfer window. Apart from Ramsey, who do you think we missed the most? Nacho, Koscielny, ...
Santi Cazorla.
I think he means in the most recent window.
Well, it wasn't Santi at the start of the last window.
No, it was the year before.
That was it?
Yeah, same year as Wilshere. Emery never had Cazorla.
Oh, no, I guess he didn't, no. All right. Still hurts me, that one. When you've seen how well he's playing in Spain.
Yeah.
How sad is that from a club point of view? And I know we have to make these decisions, but you look at a player who looks like he may not walk again, let alone play again, and you give him an extra year on his contract, to help him through that period. But then you've got to make a decision. And you think, fuck, he might not play again. We can't. And he turns out to be back playing well. Oh.
What was really weird about him is he was never involved in the matchday squad, but he was just starting to I remember I went to a game and he was involved in the warm-up, with the subs kicking the ball around. And do you know what I mean? They were doing some running on the pitch. I think it was Atletico Madrid at home, actually. And they would just sort of seem like he was getting back in full training. And then that was the year he went. And like you just said, it seemed like they gave him the extra years to let him recover and sort of show a bit of loyalty. And then when he was getting back to recovering, it was the year they decided to let him go. I mean, had they let him go the year before, you kind of would have been, it leaves a bit of a horrible taste that the guy's injured and can't walk and you dumped him. But footballing wise, you understand it. It kind of made no sense at the time they actually done it.
No. Well, I guess, he still wasn't, when he had that sort of injury, you've got, are you going to take a chance on a player that may, even if you sign him for a 1 year deal, it's going to cost you 5-6 million at the sort of wages he was on. Look, I'm not saying it was the right decision. Obviously, it wasn't, but it was a tough one, I think, to.
Oh yeah, look, it was very difficult. It's just that the year before was seemingly the easier decision.
So what was Maddie's question? It was about players who left this year. Well, you got rid of so many, didn't we? Iwobi. Have we missed him? No, I don't think we have. I don't know. I can't think who else left. There was a lot of deadwood was cleared out, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, he listed the two he listed with Koscielny and Nacho, and for me, I still think we missed Nacho. Maybe not even as a player, but he was a bit more of a leader. He always tried very hard. He was not a leader in terms of he was never going to be captain, but he would kind of lead by example in that he was always giving 100%. Was usually a 7 or 8 out of 10, and it was someone you could kind of bounce off. There would have been times in the last few weeks where I'd have been more than happy to see him in the lineup, and I don't think he was finished by any means either. He was obviously not as good as he was a few years ago, but it wasn't at the point where I saw him on the team sheet and thought, oh, for fuck's sake. No, there was I think up until 2 weeks ago, Nacho had played more Premier League minutes this season than Ozil because he played the first 3 games and then left.
Yeah. I mean, when we talked about this in the summer, I was disappointed. Once we signed Tierney, I wanted Monreal to stay. I thought it would have been worth having him as a backup. He can play in a centre of a 5 in defence, and I didn't think that Kolasinac was good enough for Arsenal Football Club. And funny enough, I thought Kolasinac has been playing It's considering, you think about it, him from his point of view, he's got with Arsenal, the club has spent 25 million on somebody who's surely going to be first choice. And you've got a chance at that point then to your head to go down and you to want to leave and you to sulk. But actually, he's worked very hard. And I think he's played much better this year than he has played in any previous season for us.
To be honest, in Lundberg's games, the best two outfield players have been him and Xhaka.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about Xhaka. I thought Xhaka was pretty awful yesterday.
I thought he was bad yesterday. I thought he was the best outfield player against both Brighton and Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, I was singing his praises after the Brighton game in the best player in a very, very poor performance. But yesterday, I mean, I don't know if there's any questions on Xhaka, so I don't want to sort of... but we haven't talked about him in the game. I thought his head was down, and the ball he gave away towards the end, where he just crossfield ball right into the middle, right into the danger area. It was lazy. He ducked out of. He didn't show any aggression in the box when he could have perhaps cleared things. I think Xhaka's relationship with the club has gone to a point where I think whether he goes in January, which I think is a good argument for that, but certainly at the end of the season, I can't see him getting back on side with the fans, and I can't see the fans liking him, wanting him to stay. So I think we should, consider that he's on his way out, and he may have played well for a couple of games, and he got a good reception at the Brighton game from the Arsenal fans.
How fake was it though? It was hilarious.
Sorry, how fake?
How fake was it? Like everything he done, it was like well done, great, world class. The way you went down there, like. There was one time I think he went like with a little injury and the physio came on, so he had to walk off to come back on, and it was like class, like where you walked off that pitch. Saying that, what I did find disgusting is how slow fucking Lacazette walked off the pitch against Brighton.
Yeah, I think we will. I think
that's under the microscope now, isn't it? It's something that 6 weeks ago no one would have even batted an eyelid. That because what happened with Xhaka, now every time anyone takes half a second longer than you think they should, it's like fucking disgrace, get off the pitch.
Yeah. Well, my first question here on Twitter is about Lacazette, so that links us in very nicely. This is from Tez at Guna Tez. Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Guna Tez. Enjoy the show, lads. Lacazette sits on the bench as Martinelli starts and scores a goal. Thoughts on Lacazette's future at Arsenal?
I always get lynched because I'm not Lacazette's biggest fan, so this is already not going to start off on a great point. I mean, look, I don't know. There's a place for him definitely in the squad. Should he be a starter every week? Not for me. That doesn't mean he's someone that only plays 10 games a year. I mean, you can deal with rotation, and there's times you are going to need two strikers. Not at the moment, because no team bothers just defending against us because we're so shit. But if we do start playing well and teams start packing out defences again, there is an argument for getting two strikers on the pitch, and even two strikers and two wingers. It's that question. Like, there's no harm in keeping both of them, but if someone said you had to sell one of them, for me, it would be Lacazette. And I don't think one of the things that's always been quite positive about him is his body language. And the last few weeks, I mean, his hold-up play's been poor. Maybe he's still not fit or he's not sharp or whatever. His hold-up play's been nowhere near the level we expect from him. And his body language has not been anywhere near what we expect from him. He still celebrates wildly when he scores. And it's actually quite interesting. His goal record, I think he's got 4 and 3, or 3 and 4, something like that. Yeah, 3 and 4, because he got 2 against Southampton and 1 against Brighton. His scoring record's actually slightly gone up, but his all-round game has not been good, and he just, as well as the rest of them, I'm not just blaming him, they've looked like not interested, and he's been part of that. And again, it's just not what you expect from him, given how much he usually looks like he's putting in, and how much he wants it, to use a horrible phrase.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on all of that. I think it's funny. I was quite supportive of Emery, or at least giving Emery a chance to work with this new squad of players. And when you looked at the start of the year, when you had Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe, Saka playing well in pre-season, it looked like and Martinelli was a new kid that we'd bought that we didn't know much about. It looked like this was, we were going to be. I was very optimistic going into this season, and within that squad we play a lot of games, and Lacazette is absolutely part of that. Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe, Martinelli, Saka. That's a great front five. It really is a great front five, and there will be enough minutes in games to keep all of those players happy. the issue with me is what you brought up, and I've just written it down here, was body language. I think this year Lacazette looks like a player that doesn't want to be there, and I think we've got too many of those in this team, and that's sort of why we're in this situation. Emery, I haven't even had a chance to say this. What class that man was when he left the club. The letter that he wrote to fans, and I don't care whether it's all marketing. I don't care whether people just say these things because they're looking, for their next job. But he said what an honour it is to manage this club, and he's really upset that he didn't manage to do better. I know we didn't like him. I know we wanted him to leave, but I sort of felt that, looking at his career, he's better with poorer players. And at PSG, although he did the treble there, he had big fallouts with some of the bigger names. And at Arsenal, it's been the same with Mesut Ozil. And to me, players like Lacazette were the ones that just didn't feel like they were bothered this year. And he's got that, the way, the amount of time he took to walk off the pitch we talked about earlier. I just feel that when Lacazette's been playing this year, he looks miserable. And we criticise Ozil's body language because he looks lazy, but actually he runs quite a lot. Lacazette, when he looks up for it, looks like one of the best players in the Premier League, and when he doesn't, he doesn't.
Yeah. There's a big difference. I know you're not going to go the whole hog because it's not true, but the exaggeration, he looks like one of the best when he's on it and one of the worst when he's not.
Yeah, but I think as well,
exaggeration, but he does look terrible when he's, like I said, when his first touch is bouncing off him. He doesn't look up for it. You look at him and think, why are you there? Like, what are you actually doing? And it's the same. Again, you have to balance this because people think, oh, you just love Aubameyang and hate him. It's like Aubameyang in the first half yesterday didn't look interested. They're different in that Aubameyang only looks interested when the ball's in the area, pretty much. But then again, when the ball's in the area, he looks like one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, and I think going back to what Tez says about Lacazette's future at Arsenal, I think this is a wider thing now, Tony. I mean, we're at Arsenal Football Club, and we've just won once in the last 2 months. We're at the lowest form since 1977. We've got disharmony within the supporter base. We've got disharmony at the club. We don't know what direction we're going in as far as who's going to be our coach or manager. But I do think what you've got to look at is that we have got some players that are the core of Arsenal going forward. And we've got a very good goalkeeper. I know you question his distribution, but he's a very good goalkeeper. We hope that Bellerin will come back to his best. We know that Chambers is a young English guy that's a squad player maybe, but is going to be there or thereabouts. We've got Tierney, who's in theory the future. Torreira wants to leave. Xhaka will probably leave. Luiz hasn't added anything. Socrates, isn't really up there with the best. Mustafi hasn't proven himself. These are all players that I think could leave. And when you look at the forward line, if Aubameyang and Lacazette don't want to sign new contracts, then we have to sell them at the end of this year. Otherwise, we get into that last year situation. So I think we're going to have to look at the fact that we may have to sell both of them, and our front line could look like Pepe, Martinelli, Saka, Nelson next year, but at least we'll have raised 100 million to maybe replace one of those. I think we really have to face facts that if Lacazette and Aubameyang don't want to sign contracts, and Torreira doesn't want to sign a contract, and Xhaka doesn't want to sign a contract, then we have to get rid of them this year. And I think Arsenal next year will be a lot different to Arsenal this year. Yeah,
I think that depends on how the rest of this season plays out on if them players want to sign contracts. I mean, if we come 12th and get knocked out in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, I make you right. I think most of them players will be off. But if we get back into the Champions League, or if we go deep in competitions, and there's a bit of a feel-good factor, I think it's as much feeling as performance.
Yeah, sorry, I was me the positive man. We're in, what are we, 11th place or 10th place, and we're in all sorts of trouble. God, wouldn't it be nice to get in the Champions League? Well,
do you know what's funny? And as shit as we have been, it's like, as you said, United, they're seen now as doing well, and Tottenham are this magical team again, and we're a point and 2 points behind them. And it's like this season is so fucked up in that you have 3 good results and you're sort of in and amongst things. Chelsea have, I think, only won 1 in 5 now. They're lucky they're allowed to buy players again, because their players are burning out quickly, especially fighting strong in the Champions League as well. I think that reversal of the transfer ban could be a massive thing for them, because they're burning out as other teams, as Tottenham and United are getting good, and everything's closing up apart from Leicester and Liverpool, and I'll count City in that, even though they don't keep winning. You just know no one else is going to get near them. teams are sort of burning up all over the place, and 3 good results, and suddenly you're in and amongst it again. I mean, I don't think we're going to get top 4, but it's disgusting that we haven't won for 2 months, and we're 1 point off United and 2 points off Tottenham, or the other way around, whatever it is.
It's in. There was an interesting statistic since Arsenal. I mean, this was obviously before our magnificent victory last night at the tough home of West Ham United. That in the time since we last won against whoever it was, Bournemouth. Leicester have won 8 times.
Yeah.
And that's shocking. I mean, I think that's probably an all competition thing, but Leicester have won 8 times. They have really cemented that place, haven't they? It's all theirs to lose, and they're playing with so much confidence that they don't look like losing another game. Don't look like losing a game. They don't look like falling out of that. I mean, it's early days yet. There's still over half the season to go. But you're right. We are now in a race with Tottenham, Manchester United, Chelsea, and some others for one place, and that's a bit worrying.
Yeah.
At least we have got the Europa League to go for. I mean, we know where our focus should be.
Yeah, my big worry is I wouldn't. I said this last week. I wouldn't be massively surprised if Liverpool go out of the Champions League tonight.
No.
And then you think, oh yeah, them in the Europa League, fan-fucking-tastic.
yeah, there are a couple of good sides there, aren't there?
Well, I mean, them Napoli or Salzburg are going to come down, and I don't want it to be Salzburg because they'll take it seriously. You think Napoli and Liverpool might fuck it off and play their youth team, but Salzburg, obviously, they're not a big club in that sense. They're going to play their strongest team every round to kind of get European recognition and get their players noticed so they can get inflated transfer fees, and they're very good. So it's like I want Salzburg to go through, but then I think that means Liverpool go out, and that does no one any favours, really.
No, it's frightening, isn't it? Because that is our real only chance to start playing some good football. I mean, look, as you say, though, 2 or 3 wins. It's just unfortunate that we've had all of the easy games over the last 6-8 weeks, haven't we? The run that we've just gone on. And if you go back in, I know you're trying to take the piss out of me saying, do I still want Emery till Christmas? I said, and it was before that run of games, let's view it at Christmas, because I was looking at that run of 8 games. He'll have Tierney coming back, he'll have Bellerin coming back, he'll have Holding coming back, he'll have 75% of his defence back. Let's see what he can do. But it didn't take long into that run to realise that, shit, we're just really not winning these games. We're a terrible free-fall. And now we've got City, United, Chelsea in the next 3, haven't we?
No, we've got Everton and Bournemouth between them, but 3 of the next 5.
Yeah.
We've got Everton away and Bournemouth away, and them 3 at home.
Yeah,
in our next 5 games.
Huge month coming up for Freddie. And talking to Freddie, that's the next question I think is on Freddie. This is from Halls of Marble. What are we really expecting from Freddie, as he's just a caretaker? Is it reasonable to expect him to sort the defence out when he has no experience as a manager?
Is he just a caretaker?
Well, he is a caretaker. It's just how long he becomes a caretaker for.
Yeah, I mean, at what point are you not a caretaker? How long? What's the cut-off?
Well, I think the cut-off is 2 things happen. We either start playing really well and they appoint him, or we see no change and the next manager is appointed. It's fairly straightforward, isn't it? There's no one out there at the moment that jumps out. I hear today, this is frightening, that Ancelotti, the reports in the papers this morning, that Ancelotti is going to resign. He's at Napoli, isn't he? He's going to resign after today's game and take. This is the headline in an Italian newspaper this morning. He is going to resign after tonight's game, and he will be heading to London to sign a deal with Arsenal next, and will be in charge for the weekend. Ancelotti for you?
Not my first choice, probably not in my first 3 choices, but I would not turn my nose up at it. I think the age and the training methods are negatives, but what we're saying about getting the players together and someone that has a bit of authority, this was my point when I was saying it, I think it was last week on the podcast, where I was saying at least Lundberg, like, if there's any, what have you done as a manager, he can say, okay, I might not have done much as a manager, but see that gold trophy that's paraded around the club, I done that. And I think Ancelotti comes with that same thing. They might question him, they might not like his training methods, but I've won the Champions League 4 times and won the league everywhere I've been, so you'd probably be a good idea to listen to me.
Yeah,
And I
I
think he
think
would
there is
bring
that.
that bit of authority. The only thing is, I don't know, again, because of his age and the rumoured negative training methods, I wouldn't have him on a long-term contract. But then you're not going to get these world-renowned and arguably world-class managers who go, yeah, I'll come for 6 months. That's just not going to happen.
No, it's absolutely not. If those who have listened to me over the last 3 or 4 years, Ancelotti for me is one of the negative signings. I thought Ancelotti, Capello when he was mentioned, Mourinho, all these it's just like circuit managers. You might as well get Wenger back for me. If that was the case, these are people who have done well, who have gone off the boil a bit, but because of their reputation and their history, keep getting jobs at the top clubs. And Ancelotti absolutely falls into that category for me. However, with the state of where we are at the moment, I can actually see some benefits for it. I think all of the players that he's had in the past enjoy working for him. He gets the club to play as one. Ancelotti is probably a little bit better now looking back than Unai Emery. So,
and the argument, the argument at Bayern, basically, apparently the players were running their own training sessions because they said, we're Bayern Munich, we're a good team, we want to play with the ball, and his sessions were largely without the ball and about shape. And I know that's not enjoyable for players, but that is exactly what we need. Like, players might moan, we don't get to kick the ball enough. Well, get your shape right and we'll get the ball out. But until you can fucking defend properly and defend as a team, balls are staying locked in the cupboard.
Yeah. This is also from Halls of Marble. He says, is Pepe improving since we've been playing the ball to his feet?
One of my problems with him is he doesn't vary it enough. He's so quick and obviously beats men so easily that I think sometimes he needs to spin in behind. And even if he doesn't get the ball, the next time he gets the ball to feet, the defender's so scared of him spinning in behind that they won't be on his heels. He is better with the ball to feet, but I think, and I was actually saying Walcott used to do this amazingly. He never wanted the ball to feet because he couldn't play football. But he would come short, and if the defender went with him, the next time he'd spin in behind him, because the defenders come short, they're never ever going to catch him. I think Pepe needs to learn a bit of kidology, so to speak. Like, yeah, we know you don't want the ball in behind, but if it goes there, you'll probably get it anyway because you're rapid. But it just buys you that extra half a second when you do get it to feet. Is he playing better once he's been getting it to feet? Yeah, probably, and that's how he wants it. But I just think he'd actually buy himself more time if every now and then he did just spin in behind, and whether he gets the ball or not, it just puts something in the left back's mind.
Yeah.
I was saying to someone yesterday, against City, I would literally start him and Martinelli wide and say, don't bother defend. If their fullbacks attack, let them go, because then if we turn over the ball, we just ping it long anywhere and they ain't going to catch you. And then one of two things happen: we catch them on the break, or their fullbacks stop attacking. And if you take away fullbacks, that's a big part of City's attack. Of course, they've got other unreal players, but Bernardo Silva, who for me is excellent, isn't as great when he hasn't got someone overlapping him. De Bruyne can't come in off the touchline if there's no one bombing on the outside on the left. So it kind of inhibits the way they think. And look, you might concede goals where their players get brave and go and overlap, but it'll give them something to think about. I think playing how we have been playing, they'll just come and beat us. There is nothing to think about.
Isn't it kind of sad? At the start of the season, obviously Bellerin was coming back from a long-term injury, but we bought Pepe. And one of the things that I was quite excited about seeing was having Bellerin and Pepe playing on one side and Tierney and, there was a time Saka or playing on the other side. And I just thought, it was going to be, we'd seen how Emery wanted to play with balls getting down to the fullbacks, getting down to the byline and cutting back in. And yet we haven't seen, Bellerin hasn't made it back. He hasn't made it back fit. He hasn't looked his old self as of yet. And when Bellerin has played, Pepe was dropped. So it just feels that it's the same always. When we've had a good right back or when we've had a good fullback, we haven't had anyone ahead of him to play with. And when we've got a good winger, we haven't got the right sort of fullback in place. We've had a temporary one like Mustafi or Chambers. And it just feels a bit sad that we haven't. I think that we would have seen the best of Bellerin and the best of Pepe if those two had been playing together at their best.
Yeah, I mean, similar but different point I made a couple of weeks ago, that this is why I would have been starting Maitland-Niles at right back, and it's nothing against Chambers, but it allows Pepe that extra time because they have to worry about his pace, whereas Chambers, you can kind of let him go.
Yeah.
And you've got that yard on him to catch him, or his delivery is not going to be the best.
I've got a lot of time for Chambers. You know, he's. I don't know if you.
I like him.
I don't know if you
It's
saw
not a
that.
criticism.
I don't know if you caught it at the start of the game. The camera zoomed in on just before kickoff on Chambers and Socrates chatting, and it was quite an interesting. So the camera was just close up on him, and it was Chambers with his finger pointing at Socrates, and he was just giving him instructions. Right, this is what we're going to do, and it was very much like Chambers was the senior professional, and Socrates was the naughty boy. You know, it was a very interesting bit of body language, and I think Chambers, you know, he's got better and better as a player, and as a he's quite a smart footballer. I don't think he's the best, but he certainly must feel that is his place to lose now.
But that's the thing for me. Where his athletic abilities aren't quite there, I don't think you can play him at right back. And he had a spell in the season earlier in the season where he done really well. I remember I was shitting at myself about him playing right back at United because Dan James, and he played really well. He got booked early on and he managed the game and no problem. But one good performance doesn't mean you keep your place. And I know a lot of people don't like Ainsley, but for me, if I had a shootout between who I would choose at right back, all things considered, it'd be Ainsley every time. But I agree with you. For me, Chambers is the centre-back at the moment, and it's him and one other.
Yeah, I think as well, Ainsley Maitland-Niles has been a bit stupid himself. I keep saying, I want to be a right winger, I want to be a central midfielder. His best chance of playing football for Arsenal Football Club is at right back. You know, start learning that position. You know, it may not be what you want, but it's your best chance of playing football. Because Yankees, what choice is he at right wing? You know, he's... Yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, Emery didn't help that situation, and maybe he was listening to Ainsley, which also didn't help. But then in the Europa League games, he started playing him right wing, or he played him like one right wing as part of the three, and then I think at Liverpool, at Anfield, he played him in the midfield three. Like, don't pander to these players. If you see him as a right back, whether it's right or wrong, if you only see him in your first team as a right back, don't start fucking about playing him somewhere else, especially if it's only going to be for one game here and then another game 3 weeks later. I just think he's listened to him, but what was that ever going to achieve? Was he scored at Anfield, but they're then going to go, actually, fuck Pepe, you're now a right winger. It was never going to happen, so what was the point?
Yeah. Last one from Halls of Marble. He says, is Xhaka playing better lately since we're utilising his long-range passing better?
As I said earlier, I didn't think he was good yesterday. I don't think it was as bad as people are going on about. But again, Xhaka starts the game with a lower rating than everyone else. But he wasn't good. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that. But I thought the 2 games previous, he was our best outfield player by a distance. I know when we done our 3-2-1s against Norwich, I gave Aubameyang the 3 for the same reasons I gave Pepe the 3 this week. That not a match winner because we didn't win, but he's got the 2 goals when we've drawn 2-2. It's kind of hard to go with anyone else. But if you're asking me who was the best player against Norwich, it was Xhaka, and he may have been the best of a very bad bunch against Brighton, but if you outperform everyone else, you're the best player on the pitch. So I think he has been better recently. I don't know if I'd put it down to his long passing. I don't know what I'd put it down to, but I definitely think he's been our best player.
Yeah, I mean, consecutive managers, Wenger included, have all, you know, in fact, 3 managers now have all had Xhaka as their first name on the team sheet. He very rarely misses, very rarely injured. I just think that the relationship with him is not good. I don't think he likes playing for us anymore, and I don't think the crowd like him, and I think he'll go possibly in January. But I
don't think there's any chance of him going in January, especially if Freddie's still there. And it is, I know people moaned about him being captain and said he wasn't captain material because of the way he played and he was too hot-headed. He is so obviously leader on the pitch. It is ridiculous. Like, he's the only one. He doesn't lead by example in the way he plays. I'm not arguing that. But he's the one G'ing everyone up, and he'll have a go at someone when needed. Whereas everyone else, like, someone will make a mistake and they'll just be like, oh, yeah, sort of carry on. I hate saying this because it makes it sound like I think I'm better because I'm there. I'm not. But when you can see it, it's very rare people come out the games and don't think he's the captain on the pitch. Obviously, Aubameyang wears the armband, but Xhaka is so clearly the leader on the pitch. And it was no surprise to me that Freddie brought him back in straight away because he is that voice on the pitch.
I don't doubt it, and this is where I'm saying how lacking we are. I mean, Aubameyang as captain, somebody who spends half of the game looking uninterested, very good at his trade, but you would hardly call him a captain. And as I say, when Pepe gets taken out of the game, you want somebody over there to give him a dig, and there's no one in that side, and not even Xhaka now. He's given up. I don't think he wants to be there. I don't doubt that he's all those things that you say. I don't doubt he's the best leader on the pitch. Got no problem with that, and I don't doubt that Freddie would probably want to keep him. But I also think that he, as a player, I don't think he wants to play for the club anymore. And whether that means he'll go in January because it's a difficult time to buy and sell, or at the end of the season. But I don't think he will be playing for Arsenal after this year. We've got a few in from MAA, as usual. MAA_Gunner says, when was the last time you saw our manager and players embracing each other after a game? Good smiles and laughs between the two parties.
Look, it's nice, but I'm not going to buy into that. And I say this all the time. If you ain't doing that when we're losing and drawing, don't expect praise for doing it when we win. And it's not anything against Freddie or against any of the players. Yesterday, the players come and spent ages with the away fans. Maitland-Niles practically had to be dragged away. 3 or 4 players threw their shirts in. Against Brighton, they couldn't get off the pitch quick enough. Like, if you're man enough to take the applause when it's deserved, and it was deserved, be man enough to give it back when you've served up an absolute pile of shit. They want to hide when they're crap and be treated like gods when they win. For me, I'm never ever going to praise that.
Oh, come on, it was just relief, wasn't it? It was everyone.
But if they can't clap us when they're shit, don't expect it back. And look, it's nice. I stand there and do it, but I'm not going to praise them. Oh, look how great they are for coming over to the fans.
No, I don't think, you're right. You were there. They didn't show that so much on the TV, of course. We saw they all come over. We saw Freddie go over, and I've got no doubt.
But do it against Norwich or Brighton.
But it's, I think what MAA Gunner is talking about is, the cameras last night just they followed. It was embarrassing. Freddie's got to get used to it, but they followed Freddie with a camera from 2 yards away and watched him embrace every player. I know you can see all that from the stands, but that's what the TV cameras did for the 2 minutes after the final whistle went. The camera just was one of those mobile cameras that followed Freddie.
I've seen it. That was on Sky's package. The tackle on Pepe wasn't, but that was. But my point is, if you're not going to do that when we lose and draw and try and pick the players up, don't expect credit for it. For saying well done when they've won.
I don't mean anyone's looking for credit.
I just think we should credit it.
I don't think we're looking for credit for it. We're just saying, isn't it nice that they actually looked like they were enjoying themselves?
I'd prefer he does it every week rather than just when we've won. It's like, look, he hasn't chose to be centre stage. Sky have made him that. But if you're not going to stick around for the criticism when we win, I'm not going to give you a pat on the back for jumping around and hugging everyone when we wrong way around. If you're not going to stick for the criticism when we lose, I'm not going to give you a pat on the back for running around and hugging everyone when we win.
I know, but let's say this. I was never Jurgen Klopp's biggest fan. I think he knows how to play the media and the fans very well. He's proving me wrong. He's turned out to be an excellent manager. But the style that Jurgen Klopp, if you talk about his style of play, is the players all want to play for him, and he's got a personal relationship with all of those players. I think what MAA Gunner...
Again, he's got a relationship with them, win, lose or draw.
No, but I'm saying what MAA Gunner was saying in his question wasn't it, when was the last time we saw it? Isn't it nice that even when Wenger, thinking about it, think about the question said, when was the last time we saw the players? I can't think of a time, even when we used to win games, where there was that look of relief for me, is what the word was.
Yeah, Wenger was very anti-limelight, even at his last game at Huddersfield. He didn't want to come over. Like, it was he had to, basically, because all the away fans stayed for about an hour after the game.
Did Freddie get his name sung out? I sort of heard it once.
Oh, it's non-stop, but it's been non-stop. Norwich was literally, it was the only song we sang the whole game.
Right, didn't hear it at all at the home game when I was there on Thursday against Brighton.
Yeah, both away games. It's been non-stop. Even walking back to the station, like Westham's horrible to get out of, and you get held in a queue for ages. And even the whole queues were everyone only singing Freddie's name, no players' names or anything. But yeah, it's been. I don't know if I say well received. I think most people think he's not the right man, but he's there. And as you said, he's a club legend, and we already have a song for him, so we don't have to think up a new one. They've not changed it from Red Hair.
I thought it was No Hair. No, okay.
Yeah, I think people tried that, and it's like the Ozil song when Emery first came in. We tried to change it, and it just didn't really work as well. So we went back to the tried and tested.
Yeah,
he's still Wenger's man, even though he's on 2 and possibly his 3rd manager. It's very soon. It will still be Wenger's man. and that's that people tried at Norwich no hair, and it just didn't really work. So he's still got red hair.
I mean, I'm sure people do know, but just for those who are young Arsenal fans who are following the club for the first time, who don't know Freddie as a player, because I mean, fair comment. It was 12 years ago, I guess, or so, he left the club, somewhere around about then, or he stopped playing for us. But it was just before a cup final where he dyed his hair red, the same way that what was his name, the Tottenham centre forward, Kane did, because he was an Arsenal fan in those days. He dyed his hair red. Lots of our fans dyed their hair red for the cup final that year, and Freddie did the same. So we sing about him, loving him because he's got red hair. Another one from MAA: is the criticism on Rahul justified or reactionary?
Look, he had a good window and he got rightly praised for it. He held on too long with Emery, and he's, in my opinion, and he's getting criticism for it. Look, I said this earlier on in the season, I'm not sure if he was on the podcast, that football works in phases. His summer phase was very good, but it's long lived, the king is dead, long live the king. That phase is done now. Your credit, you've got your credit for that. Now it's what you're doing in your job now. You can't just rest on what you've done. I think the criticism about the Emery stuff has probably gone a bit over the top, because he's gone from Don Raul to being useless and a cancer to the club and whatnot, which for me is too strong. But I think criticism is fair. I think there's just been too much of it. But now we're in the next phase. He's now got rid of Emery belatedly, but he's got rid of him. Now we're in the next phase. Who do you get in? And if it is someone to people's liking, then they'll deem that a success if we go on and win games. And if it's someone that people don't like and we go on to lose games, if it's, say, Marcelino and then we come 12th, then it'll be another negative against his name. I think in football, you're only ever a few weeks away from being a legend or being a villain.
Absolutely.
I don't think you're ever far away from either.
No. This is MAA. Is it worth getting a manager in now, or should we wait for more options at the end of the season? Unlikely to get the top four and doubts over a Europa League, but we're not going to get relegated, so the risk is low. But I think we talked about this, haven't we?
Yeah, I just think it ruins Freddie's career by leaving him in.
Yeah, potentially so, yeah. I mean, it's funny, there's a lot of comparisons, rightfully so, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. A fan favourite, a former legend of the club, takes over, had a great new manager bounce. Ridiculous decision by Manchester United, it seemed at the time, to persevere with him after his run of results. They offered him a contract too early. And then until the last month, it's been pretty pitiful from him, and yet they've persevered with him, and it's not perfect for them, but they suddenly now look like a good side. They just went to Manchester City and pretty much played them off the park for the first hour. I
think what's very interesting with him is, if you look at the results in the whole time he's been here, he's done well against the big teams. Even in that shit run, they lost to us, and I think that was the only one. They beat Tottenham. They may have lost to City. They drew at home to Liverpool, which, the way Liverpool ended last season, was a good result. It's probably the one that won City the league. And obviously they beat PSG over 2 legs. And then they've now beaten Tottenham and City. The problem the whole time he's been there is he wants to be a counter-attacking manager, but the average team ain't going to come and they give you nothing to counter against. So these 2 results, while they look fantastic, I'm more interested to see what he does against, because their last 4 results have been Sheffield United draw, Villa draw, and then they beat Tottenham and City. But that's how his stint as management has gone. It's more interesting to see how he does against the lesser teams. I mean, I think this season they've beat City and Tottenham, beaten Chelsea, drawn with us and drawn with Liverpool. But then they're still only 1 point above us because they've drawn with Wolves, they've drawn with Sheffield United, they've drawn with Villa, they've lost to some other shit. They're drawn with Southampton. And I know these are all results we're having as well, but we haven't had the highs of the...
They lost at West Ham, didn't they?
Yeah. Look, you can't criticise anyone for beating Tottenham and City back-to-back. But for me, they're not the results that define him. Well, I think as Arsenal fans, we've had so many years of being good against the shit teams and shit against the good teams that we look at him doing well against the good teams and they think, oh, fucking hell, it's amazing. But their problem's the opposite. You can't counter-attack teams that don't attack you, and that's the problem he's facing.
Yeah, it's interesting, because to come back to the question now about what should we do now, and I think the club are looking for a new manager. I don't think the club want to appoint Lundberg Freddie long term, because, like you've said, I don't think it's the ideal situation for the club. But I also think that if we get this decision wrong, then there's a lot more to lose, because we've probably got another 18 months or something that's wrong. Whereas, like the question said, maybe we should stick with Freddie until that right man comes along, because we're not going to go down. It's unlikely we're going to get in the top four. So isn't this decision the most important decision?
I just say, we've listed our next 5 games. If you get 7 points out of that, the fan base is gone. And I think it'll be impossible for Freddie to stay as manager. I also think it'll be impossible for Freddie to then be manager in 2 years' time.
Hasn't Freddie got enough in the bin because of the success he's had with the club? The fact that he's an Arsenal man. You said that in the 2 away games you've been to, that they've sung his name constantly. Isn't there enough goodwill towards him to actually, like Lampard's got at Chelsea, we know we're in a shitty situation, that they won't turn on him? I mean, we've got pretty shit fans, but Chelsea
lost back-to-back games either.
No, but Chelsea fans have sort of just been enjoying. They know it's a project. He's a hero at the club. Do Chelsea fans think that Frank Lampard is the best manager that they've ever had? No.
It's performance. His opinion doesn't matter. They're performing way above anyone expected. They're top of their Champions League group. I know they still need a point to go through, but they're top of their Champions League group. I know they've had a bad result this weekend, but they were comfortably 4th before this weekend, and they're still in 4th. But
yeah, they've got 1 win in 5. What I'm saying is that, you know, they're not turning on him. Will Arsenal fans turn on one of their own?
I think look, you can't compare the two situations, because Lampard's had a good time as a manager. Lundberg's coming in with nothing, and then he's had 2 bad results, or say Norwich is a mediocre result, and then a bad result, a terrible one, and now a good one. And if out of the next 5 games you only get 7 points, I know they're hard games, but I don't think the fans will stand for it. I don't think he has enough in the bank. I don't think anyone has enough in the bank.
Isn't this the time where we as supporters should enjoy, you know, I mean, look, things have been terrible. But isn't this the time where we get behind these players who are at their lowest ebb, behind a manager that's got nothing but love in his heart for Arsenal? And we know it's going to be tough, and we know it's going to be a tough season.
I don't think the hate will be on Freddie. I think it'll be on the board. I think it'll just be seen as complete negligence. And then that, unfortunately, comes down on Freddie. If you think they've been negligent in not appointing a manager and the performances are shit, then you vent your frustrations. And it's not so much at Freddie, it's at the situation he's been put in. But then that still makes his job nearly impossible. And then when it comes to that time in 2 years where they may want him, you will have the people going, oh, he was a bit shit in whatever year in 2019. I don't think it'll be so much turning on Freddie, but it'll be against the board for not appointing a manager. And then it becomes at the club. It's not individual, we don't like you, Freddie Ljungberg. It's we're pissed off with the club. You're doing everything wrong in our opinion. And then you just hate the whole club. And then Freddie as manager, whoever it would be, but as Freddie at the moment, is a big part of that.
Let's move on. Next question from Wayne ENG. Was that Wenger ball we saw slow in possession and quick fire in 10 minutes? I saw lots of, I said to you earlier in the show, I think we covered this, I actually saw lots of similarity in the way we played yesterday to how Wenger played. Lots of patient build-up, moving the ball from side to side, tiring out their players, and then when they get a little bit tired, injection of pace, and won the game. Didn't you think that was very Wenger-like, that performance?
Not really. I wouldn't compare it to anyone. I wouldn't say it was this manager's style or that manager's style. It was they passed the ball and kept it well, and at times for no reason. And then when the time came, whether it was by luck or design, they moved it quicker and improved massively. For me, the speed they moved it from 60 minutes onwards, they should be doing the whole time. But I wouldn't say, Wenger's was all about short combinations, and you'd have 10 passes on the edge of their box just to probe. That it wasn't that yesterday.
Yeah, I think Wenger at his best wasn't. You had driving runs from midfielders, Vieira, and they had that long passing. They had an Ozil type character who would find those runs of Henry. You'd have a Bergkamp slipping balls through to. It was a lot more about movement, passing and movement. And I
don't think any of the goals were born out of movement. I just thought they were born out of moving the ball quicker and having a bit more space because the ball was moved quicker. I wouldn't, as I said, I'm not saying it's a bad performance. I just wouldn't compare it to Wenger or Emery or a Rioch or Houston or Graham. It was just it's too early to say that's how Lundberg wants to play, but it was just a performance. I don't think you have to label it as a style that anyone else had used.
This is from Hakon Larsen. Love this question. What will be the cause of my death? A bullet, ageing, or Arsenal?
Probably Arsenal. A bullet when you're old while watching Arsenal.
You can't die from supporting Arsenal, okay? And it's a lot more fun with your glass half full than it is with your glass half empty. Enjoy it. The idea of supporting is to get a load of shit off your chest once a week, shout and scream at the TV or in the stadium, to get all those frustrations out instead of kicking the dog. And then you got to enjoy it. It's been fucking hard work for the last 2 years being an Arsenal fan, but it's what we do. You're going to die of old age, Hakon. This is from Keys to the Kingdom Clay. Have you ever experienced a larger...
we made him an admin of the group chat because there was a guy being a dick and I was at the Brighton game and Tez was asleep, like, because of the time zones, and he was just left to be a dick for absolutely ages on the WhatsApp group. So Tez made him someone in America, Clay, an admin, so that we had all the time zones covered. Right. So that's Keys to the Kingdom.
Oh, right. Okay, got it. So that's Clay, of course. Like his picture there as well. Have you ever experienced a larger swing in emotion? Well, I think, Clay, yeah, I mean, it is that. It was the lowest it could be, and a win was just wonderful for everyone concerned, from the tea lady at Arsenal, if that's not being rude to women, to the T-boy at Arsenal, to the manager, to our supporters in the far-flung corners of the world. We have gone from being extremely low to being just a little bit happier. It's only a little bit.
Yeah, it was even in the saying I said at half time, I generally had people say to me, like, I don't know how you do it every week. When are you going to like, how much more is it until you consider giving up your season ticket? And then at the end of the game, we're dancing out the stadium, going wild, and
it's just lovely. It's what we watch football for. And we're lucky that we're Arsenal fans. We're lucky that we're Arsenal fans because in the majority of our lives, we win the majority of our games. We've competed for titles, for FA Cups. We've been a prominent force in Europe. It's only in the last 3 or 4 years that things have gone really down the tubes. But we're still Arsenal, and we've still got hundreds of millions of pounds worth of talent in a side, a great fan base who are probably the most miserable fan base out there, but a huge fan base. We're lucky we're Arsenal fans. This is from Hakon as well. Could you guys see us splash some cash at a centre back in January?
No.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that no as well. And we've got Saliba coming next year if he hasn't been put off by it all and had his head turned by Real Madrid. Sorry?
It doesn't matter if he's been put off by it. It's just how much Real Madrid want to offer us.
Yeah, so but Saliba's coming. He's going to be the best central defender in the history of football. We've built him up that high. But no, I can't see in January that there's enough good players available anywhere to make that change. This is also from Hakan. What do you make of the Marcelino rumours? If it's true, we have hit a new low, in my opinion. Emery 2.0.
I think that's probably a bit unfair and just based on the fact that he's at he was at Valencia. Look, again, he wouldn't be anywhere near my list of choices, but he isn't as bad as people are making out. It might not be the prettiest football, but he's very effective, and he defends with a lot of energy and uses two strikers and wingers that break very quickly with pace. It won't happen anyway, but I don't think it. Again, I wouldn't be delighted. I'd probably be underwhelmed, but it's nowhere near as bad as what people are going on about. I think a lot of people, they hear a name that isn't a huge name that they know or someone they relate to the club, like Arteta or a massive name, Allegri, Pochettino, blah blah blah, and they just go, oh shit. Like, there is some managers that they have to come from somewhere. Pochettino came from somewhere before he went to Southampton and changed world. Allegri, before he went to Juventus, was somewhere. Like these, and we're just trying to get a jump on the market and bringing these managers into the big time. As I said, I don't think it'll be Marcelino, but it's not. I wouldn't be in absolute disarray if it was him.
No, I think I'm in that group that I don't know much about him. It doesn't excite me too much, but I don't know much about him. So
yeah, I'm Valencia. I'm half Spanish, and Valencia is where I'm from. So I watch them probably more than I don't say I used to watch them every week. I don't so much anymore, but I watch them more than probably your average man. And he's not a part of the bus manager. He came fourth in Spain last year, and in Spain it's not like here where you've got 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 clubs fighting for fourth. Fighting for a few positions. There you've got Real, Barca, Atletico 1, 2 and 3 in whatever order, and then there's 4 is like winning the league for every other club, because the first 3 places are sewn up. So him getting fourth last season, and they won the Spanish Cup, beating Barca in the final. They lost to us in the semi-final of Europa League. That's an excellent season for a club like Valencia. Like, it is literally as good as it can get. You've essentially won your league. You've got to a European semi-final and lost to a top Premier League side, and then you've won your domestic cup. They can't do anymore.
No, sure. I didn't know any of that, so that's good knowledge. Thank you, Tony. I didn't know you were from Valencia. One of my favourite away games, Valencia, in the Champions League about, I don't know, what was it, 10 years ago now, when we lost 1-0, but it was the week the game fell on. What's the festival there? You have the Fiesta del Fuego.
Vale.
And it's just nonsense.
It's unbelievable. You can't explain that.
No, it was just incredible. I mean, they basically set fire to the city, don't they?
Set fire to everything. And like, it's acceptable to just throw fireworks at people. Like, throw a firework in someone's face and it's funny.
Yeah.
If you leave your window open, people fire a rocket in your window, and then if you moan, it's like a banner.
But it was incredible game. I mean, I was there with some friends, not Arsenal friends, actually. One West Ham. Actually, one was Arsenal, one was West Ham. But we were invited to a really great after party and a great where they set fire to loads of stuff. It was an incredible night, and it was kind of good that we'd lost because everyone in the city was happy. Anyway, let's get back to the questions. This is one that is from arsbros .rantcast.
The Australians.
Yeah.
They've been on, one of them, they're brothers, but one of them's been on with us before. I can't remember, or something.
This is Max, I guess. We all talk an out formation, squad depth and coaching. But is Arsenal's biggest issue a lack of winning mentality and fight? Is this coachable, or does it need to be brought in a giant squad blow up and reset? Sorry, I didn't read that very well. So I sort of get what you're saying. I mean, it's something we talked about. I sort of see this. This is where we're lacking. We've got a lot of cowardly players who aren't very tough, aren't very brave. And we always talk about these leaders on the pitch. I just want a few hard men. I thought Xhaka was going to be the man. That's why we bought him in centre of midfield. I thought Sokratis was going to be that man in the central defence. But we are a bit light all the way through. Don't you agree?
Yeah, but I think they're different things. I think a winning mentality and a tough mentality are very different. Joey Barton was very tough and never won a fucking thing. You can list a load of players that you think, Mark Noble. Like, you think he's going to smash you, he ain't going to let you get away with anything. You foul one of his players, he's going to be on the case and never won a thing.
Yeah,
I don't know where winning mentality comes from. To be honest,
but you talk about Noble there. Noble, if you talk to any West Ham fan, they love him, they adore him because he is what we are missing. If Arsenal had John Terry for those last 10 years of Wenger's career, we would have been a different outfit.
I agree, but I'm just saying that a winning mentality and a tough mentality are two very different things. They don't go hand in hand. And he obviously asked initially about a winning mentality. And my point is, I don't know where a winning mentality comes from. It isn't just signing tough players, because I could list a list as long as anyone requested of players that you describe as tough or difficult. Lee Catamol, probably the highest amongst them, was playing in League One. Like, it's just a winning mentality. I think the problem with a winning mentality is the only thing that breeds it is winning. So how do you get one? It's one of them self-fulfilling prophecies. You don't get one until you win, but you don't win because it's like Tottenham winning a trophy. Most people will put that down to they've not had the experience of winning a trophy, so they bottle it. But then how do you get that experience if you bottle it every time?
Yeah, I disagree with you, Tony. I mean, even playing myself at Sunday morning football, we're not talking about great players. We didn't play for anyone I didn't play alongside anyone who played in the Premier League. But I know within my 12, 14 teammates, there was 3 or 4 of them would be desperate to win every game, and there was a few of them who just wanted to turn up and play football every week. And there is some players have that mentality where their desire to win gets them to the very top. And I think we are missing some of those characters. Some of those.
But that's very different to being tough. I would say Martinelli looks like he has an unbelievable winning attitude. I wouldn't say he's tough.
No, but I said I played alongside people who were tough, who would look after you, and those that had winning mentalities. Those are characteristics that in people that we don't have.
That's what I'm saying. They're two very different things, and not in the same bracket.
No, not necessarily. I mean,
you can have both. Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira were both. John Terry were both. You can have both, but it's not we're not tough enough. We don't like. As I said, they're different characteristics.
Yeah, but you players like Freddie Ljungberg, Robert Pires, were not hard men. Certainly Pires wasn't, but they had a desire to win. There was a mentality in that group of players where every one of them just winning was something that they wanted to do, and we don't have that in this side.
No, I agree, but where does that come from? Where does a winning mentality come from?
Well, the Arse Brothers question, which I can read, I see there's a B missing out at the top. When I said we all talk A out formation. Obviously, there's a B missing. It should be about. We all talk about formation, squad depth, and coaching. But Arsenal's biggest issue is a lack of winning mentality and fight. Is this coachable, or can it be brought in?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, winning mentality and fight are two different things.
Yeah,
and the winning mentality, I don't know where it comes from. That is my answer. I don't know. How do you get a winning mentality? Where you can't? Can you teach someone to be a winner? Probably not. Can you buy in winners? I don't know. If someone's a winner with someone else, Peter Cech, he was a winner at Chelsea. Was he a winner at Arsenal? Not so much. I know he picked up a couple of trophies, but you wouldn't say he had a winning mentality. So I think it's one of them things. It definitely exists, but no one knows where it comes from.
Yeah, well, I think you can identify that in players that you're bringing into the club. There is a mentality. Personality is a real big issue of putting a squad together.
I think it's transferable. I think some players have it all the time, but I think the majority of players, They have it when they're in that situation, apart from the exceptional ones. They have it when they're in that situation. As I said, I think Cech's a prime example. He didn't come to Arsenal as a winner, but you looked at him at Chelsea, maybe not the last year or so, but before that, and he was definitely a winner. You look at that, he won in the Champions League. Drogba gets the credit because his last game, but Cech won in the Champions League final without a shadow of a doubt.
How many players have you heard say Arsenal is a comfortable place to work? It's a lovely place to work. It's a real nice family club. You need some, I think, in that dressing room, some still that it's not just all about going to work and playing for a top club and winning more matches than you lose because you're Arsenal Football Club.
It was under Wenger, but I've spoke to players and agents who are around the club all the time who completely disagree with that. They always said it was just a line that came out and it became believed. Because they played nice, attractive football, everyone assumed on the training ground it was all nice, tippy-tappy, no one tackled. Like, if you ever see an interview about Henry, and I know we're talking about the better days, but even when we were invincible, it's so easy to play at Arsenal. They've got all the good players, they play beautiful football. And Henry said every day that there was a fight on the training ground every day, that the practice matches were harder than their Saturday matches in the Premier League. And he said the Premier League matches were so easy because training was so hard.
That's what I'm talking about. But that's what I'm talking about. That group of players were exceptional in that. In every one, there was players that wanted to win.
But at the time, it was still branded as Arsenal such an easy place to play. And that's what I'm saying. That is the line that always comes out. Every agent I've ever spoke to completely disagrees with that. We're basing that on someone said it on Twitter once.
No, that's nonsense. It's something that comes out a lot when talk about playing at Arsenal. It's a very nice place to play football. What I'm saying is, in the last 10 years,
multiple players who will completely disagree with that. Multiple. I'm not saying I ran across someone one. I've been out with players who say it's an absolute load of bollocks. I've been at dinner with agents who had multiple players in and out of the club, and they say it's absolute nonsense.
Let's move on. FPL_Canada says, when we have a manager that tells them do not pass out from the back, we will be successful. Get it forward quickly with long balls. Press high if we lose the ball and win it back in their half. That should be how we play until we buy much better defenders.
I think we play to beat the press, but then no one presses and we don't know what to do. I think that yesterday was a prime example of that. We expected to press and play around them. They let the centre-backs have the ball, so they just passed it amongst each other. I I think there's a time and place for playing out for the back, and I don't think we're very good at it. But I think even if we're perfect at it, if teams don't press, then you've got nothing to play around. I think we're very stuck in a mode of we are going to play out from the back, and we try and do it regardless of what the opposition do, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah, and I think to argue with the questioner just a little, I don't obviously have a name here, is that I don't think it's as cut and dried as let's kick the ball long, because we haven't got players at the top end of the field who retain the ball. Look at that team we had yesterday: Martinelli, Aubameyang, Pepe. They're not big, strong characters. They're not guys who are going to hold up the ball very well. And you're playing against good central defenders. It will just keep coming back to us. I mean, I think that's an issue. There's no right or wrong way. I think you're right, Tony, that sometimes we just play it out and we try to beat a press and nobody presses us. And it's almost like teams work that out very quickly about Emery's play, and they come and just stand off us, stop us being able to play through them, but without pressing deep, and we look embarrassing. And Leno's not either confident enough or smart enough sometimes to and the players don't make enough movements up the top end of the field to give another option. I mean, I think that's where some of the issues is when we're getting held into our area and not knowing what to do with it. That's when the Pepe or the Aubameyang has got to make a sprint from deep and try to latch onto a long ball from Leno. That's something that we just don't do enough of. Did it at Liverpool, I think was the last time I saw it.
I think in general, Leno can't kick the ball far enough because you want him to hit the open space and get in a foot race. Because as you said, they're not going to win it in the air. And I think that's what I think one of the biggest difference between us and City a lot of the time, apart from them being a lot better and spending a lot more, is that Ederson can kick the ball an absolute fucking mile. So you have to stand off them, because if you try and press too much, he'll ping it in behind, and then you're in a foot race against Sterling or Aguero, and 99% of the time they're going to win that race.
Yeah. Another question from #FPL_Canada. Canada flag. I heard Tierney was supposed to be the cat's whiskers. From what I've seen, he looks an average Scottish Premier League attacking wing-back that isn't that good at defending. Am I being overcritical? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think he made one mistake against someone. I think Wolves, I gave him man of the match. He kept Adama Traore as quiet as I've seen him in about 2 years. His delivery, going forward, he's good. Has he set the world alight? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't say he's overrated or bad or bang average.
And I think the thing is, just because he comes from Scotland, suddenly we think he should be able to fit into this style of play. He's gone from a very average league to one of the very best leagues in the world.
Also, he's gone from the best team in the league that won the league a million years in a row, never really get challenged and win 99% of their games, to a team that are frankly dog shit, get pressed all the time, can't keep the ball, don't have the confidence to pass it to each other. No one really wants the ball. It's a huge difference in standard. It's the same as fucking Denis Suarez coming to us, and suddenly you got all the time in the world at Barcelona, and suddenly you're playing against Crystal Palace with Milivojevic trying to kick you up in the air, and no one else wants the ball off you.
Yeah. I was going to say, it was a note I made yesterday to myself saying Tierney looked so lacking in confidence just before he got injured. He doesn't look. I was expecting him to make some more forward runs, to hit balls up the line to Saka when he's been in front of him, and a lot of the times he chooses the easier pass because he's a bit nervous, I think, of making a mistake, as they all are. But from what I've heard, he's a very good player, and I'm sure he will come good at Arsenal. Another question from #FPL_Canada, Canada flag. We have 5 starting centre-backs to choose from. Not one of those will be first choice in most, if not all, of the Premier Leagues in other league teams, in all the other Premier League teams. I'm not sure how good Saliba is, but he'll be ruined by playing next to any one of those. The priority transfer target in the summer must be a centre-back.
I think as a unit we defend so bad it makes everyone look worse. I wouldn't say none of them would start in any other Premier League club. Would they get into other top 6 clubs? Probably not. But then you look at how system changes things. A couple of years ago, even last year, everyone thought Lindelof was a joke. Now he's starting every week for Man United, and you're saying, oh, no one else is going to displace him. Like, if you'd have said a year ago, is Socrates better than Lindelof and Phil Jones, who regularly start for not as a pair, one of them starts with Maguire every week, everyone would have said yes.
Yeah, and I think it is nonsense. I think Chambers would get into a lot of sides in the Premier League. I think Socrates would. David Luiz certainly would. It's just, as Tony just said, the way we're playing, the system that we're playing, even Mustafi would be he's good enough, I think, to play in the Premier League, but maybe not in the top six. I think it's, it'd be nice to have somebody for Saliba to come in and play alongside. That might end up being Chambers, but and they're not great, but I think it's a bit dismissive to say they're all that bad. A question from that RC fella. Please take another moment to gush on about Pepe's goal. It had been coming for a while and he's sorely overdue. Loved it. Boom.
As soon as he hit it, and as I said, it was like directly in front of me, you saw the keeper's basically not got a chance. And because we've seen him put two or three, as I said earlier, we've seen him put two or three just past the post. He's hit it, and I thought, just be on target, because I know the keeper's got no chance here. And that probably took less than a quarter of a second to leave his boot to get in the goal. But you know what it's like. And even when you watch it on TV, it seems like it takes forever. So I'm just sitting there. I feel like I said to myself in my head about 15 times, be on target, be on target, be on target. In reality, obviously, you haven't got the time for that. It just seemed to take forever.
Yeah. And I emphasise what I said earlier. I think if he'd have got one of those in his first two games for Arsenal, I think our whole season might have been different. It was... He could have taken the Premier League by storm, but every time he did one of those things, it didn't come off. It got a deflection. It went somewhere else. He made a pass instead. Nothing worked for him, and gradually he got dropped. And, our season became our season. This is from Adam May. Will the board back Freddie financially in January? He may be looking at players that the new full-time manager won't want. If they do back him, what do we need?
They don't buy based on the manager. Well, I'm going to say head coach. They don't buy based on the head coach anyway.
Yeah, I think the only possibility... There's not much that goes on in January, let's be fair. The best players aren't available. You're taking chances on people. Possibly, if Xhaka leaves the club in January, I think they might want to replace him if they can. But I think they will either have changed the manager by January, or they've made their investments at the transfer window last, and I think they're going to stick with him. Who's next? This is from Mahmoud Hanafi. What do you make of Chambers' performance? Thought he was solid, and that was against a really physical centre-forward in Antonio. Reminded me of the Newcastle game, which he was also against a physical centre-forward. Well, I think we've done Chambers, haven't we? I think we were both very impressed with the way he played.
Yeah, I mean, when I gave him my points, literally, it seems like pretty much word for word, I said what this question said.
Yeah. Another one, same questioner. I know that Ainsley Maitland-Niles has had his defensive deficiencies, but is our best available right back, attacking-wise. With some protection from the midfield, we could have a really strong right-hand side, which brings the talk of how our players doesn't complement each other's weaknesses. I mean, I think we've mentioned that as well. I talked about Bellerin and Pepe playing well, looking forward to seeing how that developed, and it hasn't happened for one reason or another. I mean, I think that is something. Maitland-Niles and Pepe, can that work for you, Tony?
I think so, just because of Maitland-Niles got the pace that if Pepe attracts two or three people, which he tends to do, Maitland-Niles can get in on the overlap. First half he basically didn't do it at all. I think he'd done it once. Second half he was constantly on the overlap, and it makes, obviously, the winger has to go with him. They can't let him go, so then they can't double up on Pepe, or if they do, then Maitland-Niles is in. Or they can just play 1-2s, and they're both so quick that they're just going to outstrip the person marking them, and they're either going to get fouled or be allowed to run free down the wing.
Yeah. Last question from Mahmoud. This last question I've got, it says, I think the team can't accommodate both Aubameyang and Lacazette, especially in away games. I also think it's another indication of a badly assembled squad. And what are our thoughts on that? I mean, I don't think our squad's that bad. I mean, it hasn't performed as well as I was hoping, but from an actual looking at it on paper, our squad, we've got two choices, when they're all fit, two good choices in theory for every position. And I don't think there's a problem with having Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe, Saka, Martinelli as your available front line when we play, with a 3-1 attacking lineup. I don't think it's a badly assembled squad. It's the tactics that the manager has brought to that team that's just not got it balanced and working well. What do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I don't think it's a badly assembled squad. I think there are some areas we're lacking. We don't have arguably Saka, but I mean the kid's only just turned 18. We don't have a proper left winger. We've been shoehorning Martinelli and obviously Aubameyang out there, but we don't have anyone where you would say they are a first team left winger, because let's be honest, at the start of the season no one considered Saka. And I would probably argue that there's no pairing in the midfield I really like that complement each other. But I don't think it's a terribly assembled squad. I think there's some oversights, but not. And then obviously I would argue we need I wouldn't argue. I'd say we need one at least much better centre-back. But I think poorly assembled squad is quite harsh.
Yeah, I think you'd like to see one of either Chambers, Mustafi, Socrates, Holding, Louise. You would expected two, I say one, but two of those to have stepped up and made themselves absolute first choice players, and we haven't got that. And I think you would have also have liked to have seen either Guendouzi, Torreira or Xhaka to have had an outstanding season, and none of those have played that well. We're talking about the kid out of those three, Guendouzi, being our best of the three this year because of his work rate.
I'd argue I think he has played well.
Yeah, okay, but I'm saying he's been the best out of the three. You would expect, one of those three players to... this is Arsenal. You would think that in the Premier League they should be talking about how great Torreira is for Arsenal, like Kante was for Chelsea. You would hope that one of those three would have come forward. And what we've got is a situation where the kid out of those three, who's my favourite player, don't get me wrong, I love him, but he's been the best of those three, and there's been lots of criticism of him this year. Headless chicken, not knowing what he's got to do with the ball, no common sense, wanders out of position, loses concentration. These are all things that have been said about Guendouzi this season. That's our best midfielder. Yeah. So we move on. We've got Standard Liège on Thursday night. Thoughts on what he'll do?
Fucking hopefully just not lose 5-0.
So that's it. That's the situation. As long as we don't lose 5-0, we're through.
Yeah, because it goes on head-to-head and we beat them 4-0.
Yeah. I would like, really, this is what I would like to happen on Thursday. I don't even want Freddie to go. He talks about how much time, he hasn't had time on the training pitch with the players. I listened to his press conference last night. I listened to that today. And he talked a lot about not having, with 2 games a week, not having time to really do too much on the training field. It's recovery, it's all in the classroom, looking at videos, talking, rather than actually out there training. And now I've got a dead rubber against Standard Liège. I would not take anyone who is going to be involved in the first 11 against Manchester City, and I would work with them on the training ground. I wouldn't even go myself. And you can play a really good side. We've got Martinez can play. We've got 2 fullbacks, Louise and Mustafi, who will probably not play on Saturday.
We don't know. Fullback's actually an issue because...
Fullbacks are the issue, yeah. Fullbacks are the issue. But I was going to say, outside of the fullbacks, the team pretty much picks itself. You can play everyone. You can play everyone who wasn't involved. Our squad is big enough. The problem is in fullbacks, and because as long as we don't lose 5-0, I would play some kids out of the under-23s. It's a time for that.
I don't see. I think he'll play. I don't even count people like Willock and Saka as kids out the under-23s, but I think they're the young ones that play. I think Lacazette will play. Yeah. I'm not sure on Smith Rowe's fitness. He'll play if he's back. Fullbacks, I think he's going to have to go with the main 2 because that's all we've got.
I don't think you can risk it. I don't think he can risk it, Tony. What happens if Kolasinac gets injured? What happened? I mean, we've got a few options at right back because Mustafi and Chambers can both play at right back, but at left back we have no one. So you play Kolasinac in a dead rubber, he gets injured, and we've got Manchester City next. It just doesn't make sense. Play somebody, Medley, who I think is more of a centre half in the under-23s. He played at left back in one of the Carling Cup games, one of the League Cup games. Surely you can't risk an injury to Kolasinac at the moment. You can't take him. Can't even put him on a bench.
I expect them to start.
Yeah, I just think it would be a nonsense decision. Can't risk him. The team will be strong enough. You said it yourself. We've got Nelson can play. We've got Saka can play. We've got Guendouzi can play. We've got Lacazette can play. Nelson, if I haven't mentioned him, there is a whole group of players who haven't played. Mustafi can play. Mustafi can play right back. Louise can play centre half with Holding if Holding's fit. There's no need to risk anything. Have a whole week on the training ground and prepare for the month ahead.
Yeah, he's going to go a lot stronger than you think. I think, again, this comes down to that winning mentality thing. Winning breeds winning, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's a no need. The players who don't travel won't have lost. Yeah,
it's the club, isn't it? I think he'll go. I don't think he'll go 100% strength, but I think he'll go a lot stronger than you're expecting.
Well, I think it is strong now. Lacazette, Nelson, Willock, Saka. These aren't Guendouzi. I'm not saying
if they don't play, the likes of Aubameyang and Pepe will be on the bench. If they don't start, they're definitely going to travel.
Yeah, I guess they will. I'm just saying what I would do. I'd wrap them all up in cotton wool and I'd train them every day and try and get your mentality over you. You might not have more than a week left in the job. What's he want to waste it in a game where you can just avoid a 5-0 defeat? Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough. Blimey, have we gone on? I don't know if anyone will have listened to this end bit anyway. Anything else you want to add, Tony?
No, that's all from me.
That's all from me. But if you have stuck with us all this time, nice to hear some feedback. You can comment on Twitter, where you'll find us at clockend_talk. Is that right?
Yep.
And you can get me at Deli Gooner. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for your questions. And on the end of a wonderful week where we got 3 points, we're going to win the league. You heard it here first. We will speak to you all next week. Goodbye.